It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. You do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast coming off a great sports weekend. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host broadcasting from left field, John Riley. We welcome you to our Monday podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines. This podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects, they've got materials. You want ideas, these people can be your best friends and your consultant. DIXIELINE Lumber, go to DIXIELINE.com to find out more information, who they are, what they can do for you. And by Our Lads Draft Guide. The NFL draft is complete. Here come the mini camps. Here come the OTAs. You can still subscribe to the Our Lads Draft Guide and then get also their preseason publication. Will be out just as training camps open. Just go to ourlads.com for subscription information. John Riley, good afternoon. Item 1, I am wearing black. I am wearing the LA Kings logo because they need help. You are wearing black. Is that because of the Lakers and Clippers and what's happened in the NBA playoffs? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm a Padre fan in mourning right now. But I'll tell you what, though, this was a crazy sports weekend. You just said your eyeballs are about to explode.
My head was going to fall off my shoulders. There was so much to watch and so much to write about and so much to prepare for. But we're going to be here for the next hour plus. Couple of business items. When we are done putting topics on the table, because we do sports talk the way it should be done. When we're done, we allow you to take over this podcast. We call it Fans Forum, and you can pile in with questions, answers, statements, and opinions. How do people do it on the streamline?
Okay, how do you do it? Just get involved in Fans Forum. Just drop your take in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum, and I already see Matthew's on board already. So if you got a question or comment for Hacksaw, just drop your take in the live chat.
Couple of other items. If you like sports, I write about sports every day. It's on my website, leehacksawhamilton.com on the internet. Check it out. You won't believe the volume of information we have. Also, we have Hacksaw's Insiders Group. When you join my Insiders Group, you get on the email list. We send stuff out every day to everybody in the Insiders Group. So register. Go to my homepage on my website and just fill out the orange box with the information. Do that. I know you're on social media. I want you to join my Twitter All-Star team on X. Just follow me at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. Want you to share. Want you to subscribe. Tell everybody what we're all about. We're here Mondays at 1:30, Thursdays at 1:30. Ton of topics on the table, and then the fans get involved. Tell them about that, and then subscribe. When you subscribe, then you get the alerts every time we put something new and unique up on the YouTube channel, and we do that virtually every day of the week. Give us a thumbs up, because that really helps with our rating. Give us a 5-star, because that helps us a great deal, too. Did I cover it all?
That covers it all, yeah.
Okay, topics on the table. Oh, did you wear any shoes that have asbestos on them? There's going to be some fiery things going to be said in the first segment of this podcast today. You want to talk about the NFL draft? Damn, everybody's got an opinion about the NFL draft.
I mean, what a spectacle, and a lot of drama with all the Shedeur Sanders. So I want to hear your breakdown.
Well, we had projected the draft was going to be about defense. It was a big boy draft of defense and offensive linemen. 26 of the first 32 picks were either defensive players or offensive linemen. Hardly any skill guys chosen. But obviously, it was an enormous storyline as to who got where and who took whom and why certain guys were allowed to sit there for an extended period of time. Let's just, off the top of my head, recap quickly. Tennessee, as we projected, they took Cam Ward, the Miami Hurricane quarterback. He won everybody over with his meetings. Now, he's got to prove he can do it on the field. I'm not going to say he's a can't-miss prospect, but obviously when you're the number 1 pick in the draft, you've done a lot of positive things. Jacksonville made the bold trade, which nobody saw coming. They flipped with Cleveland. Jags drafted number 2. They went out and they got the 2-position player, Travis Hunter. They got themselves then the next morning, the surprise press conference where they said he's going to be a wide receiver. And then he'll play nickelback occasionally on third downs. He's a two-position guy. It'll be intriguing to see if he's a better wideout than he was cornerback. I thought he was a great cornerback at Colorado. The Giants drafted third. They took the big Penn State pass rusher, Abdul Carter, to go with all the other guys they've got on defense. New England at number 4 started a drive to protect their quarterback, Drake May. New England went out and got Will Campbell, the massive left tackle. Everybody that I've canvassed with, scouts and player personnel people, said this is a can't-miss kid. He's going to play for more than a decade or so. So that's interesting to see that situation with New England beginning to fix the situation around their quarterback. And then there's Cleveland. Cleveland trades down to 5, and Cleveland doesn't take a quarterback. And Cleveland takes a massive defensive tackle. They took the Michigan man, and that was pretty impressive in getting Mason Graham. And he fits right in because they do have a lot of other needs, but he'll make them much better up front with Myles Garrett and all the other people they have. So that's how the top of the draft went. Now, after that, just stick with me here. Let me just run through this quickly, because the draft historically, John's always about quarterbacks. Well, it wasn't about quarterbacks this year. Obviously, it was about Cam Ward, but beyond that, it was not. New Orleans Saints, Pittsburgh Steelers bypass quarterbacks. Wow, in the first round. The Giants then traded a number 1 next year. They jumped into the first round. At the end of the first round, and the Giants took Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, and he had gotten progressively better and better and better his 3 years with Lane Kiffin. New Orleans, which seemingly has a quarterback crisis, took Taylor Shuck, got to prove he can play at this level, but the guy was a one-man team at the University of Louisville. Seattle got a gem. They think they can polish this uncut rock, Jalen Milroe. They got him later in the second and third rounds. Milroe from Alabama will be the quarterback of the future, probably in Seattle. Later in the draft, Cleveland took the mighty Mike, Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. I was stunned he went where he went. He's going to get the chance to come in and compete. To me, he looks a little undersized. Philadelphia stepped out of character. They took another quarterback. They don't need a quarterback, but they took Kyle McCord, the gunslinger from Syracuse. The only thing is, McCord is not the athlete that Jalen Hurts is. He doesn't fit the system that Philadelphia's running. So I thought that was kind of a strange selection. Pittsburgh, which hadn't taken a quarterback, took a quarterback late. They took a game manager late. Will Howard from Ohio State. Intellectual kid. We'll find out whether or not he can play in the NFL. I have huge reservations, but that's why he was on the board so long. And then late in the draft, the Raiders went into 1AA football. The Raiders went into the Big Sky Conference. The Raiders took Tommy Mellott, kind of a two-position quarterback, tight end, whatever, from Montana State. Pretty good Big Sky Conference player. But they took Tommy Mellott, and then they took Cam Miller, the star-studded quarterback from North Dakota State. So they took these two unique kids from 1AA football. So it was really interesting in the way the dominoes fell in the draft as it relates to quarterbacks. We're going to talk about the other quarterback who sat on the board forever. Talk about that in a minute. But your response to the top of the board, your response to the quarterback derby.
First of all, I love the spectacle of the whole event, and the way they have that big platform. It's like a county fair out there and everyone's jacked up. And then to see the young men come out, and they're all just dripping right now with their outfits. You're talking about, what was it? Will Howard, I think it was, or the lineman, what was it?
No, Campbell.
Will Campbell, pardon me. He had that striped suit on, and I just love seeing all those guys out there.
I wonder how you would look in Travis Hunter's pink.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that one. But it was interesting the way they started off with the choir, kind of class the joint up. They had that spooky national anthem, but the event itself is wonderful. 2 Michigan men in the top 5, right?
Yep.
That's interesting to me. Obviously the quarterback situation was wild. But for example, Pittsburgh took Will Howard. Pittsburgh is playing coy for a lot with their quarterback decision-making. They got rid of some of the guys. They weren't willing to commit to Aaron Rodgers. Do they really think Will Howard is going to be a guy that's going to compete with Mason Rudolph, or what do you think is going to happen there?
I think Aaron Rodgers is going to sign in Pittsburgh probably within a week. I think it's going to get done. I think Pittsburgh probably knew that. Aaron Rodgers probably dropped that hint. Otherwise, they'll just run the football, play defense, and hope that Mason Rudolph can just manage it. But I don't think anybody's excited in Pittsburgh if Mason Rudolph's a starting quarterback. I think once Aaron Rodgers decides to do this, then I'll think they'll get excited. Because remember, Pittsburgh traded for DK Metcalf, the big wide receiver, and Pittsburgh drafted a big-time running back, and Pittsburgh still has George Pickens. So I happen to think that Aaron Rodgers still has gas left in the tank. And if Aaron Rodgers can play the way this thing is structured under Mike Tomlin, he's going to make a difference because he'll make some plays down the field for the bunch of tight ends and the big receiver they just got from Seattle.
One other question about the draft. You notice how the fans love booing the commissioner whenever he comes up to the podium?
Yeah, it happens at every sport now.
Well, because it kind of had like World Wrestling entertainment vibes, you know, like Vince McMahon kind of a thing. But it was cool, like the history of Green Bay and the bicycles and the way he came out on the bike. And then they bring all these former players from Wisconsin that were there. I just think they do the draft really well. I mean, look how far it's come from just being in a hotel banquet room, you know, from like 30, 40 years ago.
They package it very well. And then the cheeseheads show up. 250,000 people. When they did the drone shots, couldn't believe how many people were there. And it rained, and they were still out there. So the cheeseheads, they had put on a great show, and the draft has become a spectacle. And then obviously what happened during the draft broadcast, that became a spectacle too. We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
So anyhow, that's where we are with the top picks, the blue chippers, and that's where we are with the quarterback derby. Report cards, we got some grades to hand out here, don't we?
Okay, are these the A's, or are you going to go all the way through?
All right, we're not going to do all 32 teams. I'm going to give you the letter grades for the teams at the top of the draft board. I gave Cleveland an A, despite the fact they have a misfit owner, despite the fact they've got an albatross around their neck with this quarterback contract with Deshaun Watson. I gave them an A. They got the defensive tackle from Michigan. They got the linebacker Schlesinger from UCLA. They got the Ohio State running back Quinshon Judkins. They got Hal Fanning, really good H-back tight end pass catcher from Bowling Green. And they wound up with two quarterbacks late in the day. I gave Cleveland a letter grade of A. I gave New England an A. Mike Vrabel has got 9 free agents that he signed. Then he goes out and he gets the left tackle, Will Campbell, lime green suit and all. And they got Trevion Henderson, heavy-duty running back, Ohio State. And they got a wide receiver from Washington State, Kyle Williams. So I think New England, in one off season, has just rebuilt its defense and has obviously added things around their quarterback. So I gave them an A. I gave the Rams an A. And this may sound weird. The Rams got a really good pass-catching tight end in Terrence Ferguson. I mean, he caught 88 balls. That's a really good football player. They got a pass rush defensive end linebacker, Josiah Stewart, and they got a number 1 pick next season. They'll have 2 number 1s. One of them could be pretty high, and next season is probably the season they're going to make the choice as to what quarterback they'll draft to replace Matthew Stafford. So I think Les Snead did a pretty good job. I give the Giants an A. Big pass rusher to a really gritty defense already in Abdul Carter. They get Jackson Dart. They got a massive nose tackle from Toledo by the name of Darius Alexander. And then they drafted Mr. Football down on the goal line. Everybody's got to have this type of player, Cam Scatterball from Arizona State. So I give the Giants an A. I gave the Raiders an A. Ashton Genty, obviously, stud. Maybe the next LaDainian Tomlinson. They got a wide receiver. Jack Beck catches everything thrown in his direction, averaged 17 yards per catch. Got a very good cornerback, Darwin Porter, and they need pass defense help for Pete Carroll's structure. So I give the Raiders an A. I gave Jacksonville an A because they got a 2-position player. I'll be interested to see how many snaps Travis Hunter can play. But they announced at the breakfast the morning after the first round, he's going to be our wide receiver first. He'll be a nickel corner on third downs the other time. He also got a very good linebacker, Jack Kaiser from Notre Dame. Baltimore, I just trust in God. I trust in the Ravens because when they draft good players. They draft defense. Malachi Starks, the safety, and Mike Green, the pass rusher from Marshall. So those are the ones at the top of my draft board that I thought did really well. Couple of other letter grades. Letter grades B to the Eagles. They just draft defense and defense and defense. Even though they let people go, I gave the Eagles a B. I gave Seattle a B. I think they really helped their offensive line by getting a tackle. They got help in the secondary. And obviously, they get Jalen Milroe from Bama as the quarterback of the future. This is hard to say. Dallas knows what the hell they're doing, but they historically have always drafted linemen and done very well. I gave Dallas a letter grade of B. Ty Booker, really good guard. He replaces the retiring Zach Martin, who's left because of injuries. Dallas went out, got another pass rusher, got another cover corner. Chicago, they're just letting Ben Johnson get everything he wants for the offense. Went and got the Michigan tight end, really good. Got a wide receiver. They just add to the offense. And I thought Atlanta did really well drafting linebacker and then trading to get a defensive tackle. So those are the ones I gave a B to. I gave the Chargers a B along the way. I think the lousy draft of all, I thought Cincinnati's draft left a lot to be desired because they still got a lot of holes on the roster, and they've got an issue that just has not been resolved with their top quarterback pass rusher, Trey Frederickson. So at the end of the day, a lot of guys had A's, a lot of guys had B's. This was an exceptionally, really deep draft in terms of, I think, impact players. So, John, you going to argue with me at all on any of my grades there?
Well, a couple of questions here. So I love the Jags' bold move to move up and draft Travis Hunter, two-way player like Shohei Ohtani to liven up that Jacksonville team.
Like Neon Dion.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is great. It's wonderful because the Jaguars seem to be sort of like, been kicked to the curb, by compared to other NFL teams.
Well, they got the quarterback, had a lot of injuries. Their defense was miserable. That's why a lot of people thought Jacksonville would take Mason Graham because he was such a warrior, and it's sitting there at 5. Other people thought they'd take Genty, but they already got a heavy-duty running back. They just need better people around Trevor Lawrence. And now, would you play Travis Hunter wideout all the time or cornerback all the time?
I hope he plays as many downs as possible. I think this is just a fascinating must-see TV. And the report, wide receiver and then nickelback, that sounds like a solid plan, but we all thought he was more of a defensive player than an offensive player.
Depends what club you interviewed with. Some clubs said, hey, he is so gifted as a cornerback. Other clubs have said, God, he's a wide receiver. You can't stop him. Not many people think he can play 1,400 snaps in the NFL in a season.
Well, that's going to be a lot. Now, without getting into the details of Shedeur Sanders, I know we're going to get to that in a minute. But how in the hell are the Browns going to deal with 5 quarterbacks in the QB room? I mean, they can't keep them all.
No, somebody is going to leave, but Deshaun Watson's on IR. He's not going to be able to practice or anything because of the Achilles. So I mean, he's not really going to be there. But, Cleveland's got Kenny Pickett, who's not proven himself. They got the pros pro and Joe Flacco, who's probably going to be the starter. And then you got the Oregon quarterback. He's got to prove he can play at this level. That's Dylan Gabriel. And then you got Shedeur Sanders. So I would assume I don't think they're going to carry 3 active quarterbacks on the regular season roster. They'll have the 2 veterans, and then they'll have the third guy be on developmental, and somebody's going to be on waivers, or somebody will be in the Canadian Football League, etc. But it's going to be very interesting spring going forward. But we're going to address a lot of specifics about Shedeur Sanders very, very shortly. Okay, let's talk about the team in town here.
The team in town, the Chargers. Yes. Yeah, changing the personality. Pretty interesting.
Second draft in a row. I think Joe Ortiz has done a really good job. Now, for the first time, last year he drafted really high and he got the superstar tackle in John Alt. But this was different. He was drafting 22. He got a baller. He got a guy that's going to play Powerball football. I'm talking about O'Marion, Hampton, North Carolina. 3,600 all-purpose yards in 2 years at North Carolina. Heavy duty. Physical force, runs at the second level, hard, good hands. Average 5.7 yards per carry at North Carolina. One of the all-time leading rushers, University of North Carolina football. He's like 5'11", 221. Really good football player. So you take O'Marion Hampton and you couple him with Najee Harris, and all of a sudden, that's a very, very different running back combo. And, of course, they did not re-sign J.K. Dobbins yet. Their second pick was Trey Harris, big 6'2" wide receiver out of Ole Miss. 17 yards per catch. Down the field speed. Now, part of me says, anything's better than what we've seen. But part of me says, yeah, you guys were telling me the same stuff a couple of years ago, Quentin Johnston, and that hasn't worked out well.
Right.
Now Johnston's in jeopardy of maybe not even being on the team when they get to training camp. Maybe they're just going to give up on him. Third pick, massive defensive tackle. How big is the state of Rhode Island? Jamari Caldwell, Oregon, 342 pounds of man. Big. Now, he's not a guy that's going to get to the quarterback, but he's a guy that takes up space and stops the run.
Mm-hmm.
He was pretty good. He's going to have to shed some tonnage, but they really like him. And the fourth pick is a speed defensive end linebacker. Not as sexy as Joey Bosa was coming out of Ohio State. His name is Kyle Kennard, blitz guy, South Carolina, had 15 sacks last season. More of a stand-up run guy as a bigger defensive end. So I think Joe Ortiz had a really, really good job with the Chargers, changing the personality of the team. And now you add O'Marion Hampton to go with the one-year rental with Najee Harris, the Steeler. You got two guys that can pound the ball. Now, somebody out there is going to say, hey, dumbass, they got the same offensive line back. They couldn't block last year. What makes you think they're going to block this year? Well, they're going to make some changes in the offensive front, but at least they got proven commodities. Najee Harris, 4-time, 1,000-yard rusher, heavy-duty guy, never gets hurt. And you got this guy, one of the best big ball carriers coming out of the ACC. And John Riley says,
yeah, all new receivers and running backs. I mean, this Hampton kid looks promising.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see that his coach at UNC was Natron Means?
Yes.
The running back coach. I think it's just perfect. But this guy seems legit. I mean, I know, granted, I don't follow, North Carolina football very closely, but it's interesting to see that he's coming out. He was not Ashton Genty, but I think he could be good. I mean, it sounds good.
He doesn't have the extra gear that Ashton Genty has. Genty is just really cut from a different cloth. Once he gets to second level, Genty goes. This guy is big and powerful to get to the second level, and you still got to bring him down because he's 221 pounds. And the other factor in the equation, I mean, he's polished at catching passes. He caught 37 passes last year for like 11 yards per reception. A running back. So
nice.
There's no doubt that Genty was at the top of the draft board. This guy's name was on everybody's draft board as the second best back, and he fell to the Chargers. And I was a little bit concerned because you and I communicated during the draft. I said, God, all these other guys that I had the Chargers in the running for have dropped off the board.
Yeah, the wide receiver from Arizona was gone.
Very early.
Yeah, and then the Ohio State receiver was gone.
Yep.
And those were the two top names.
Yeah, there were, and one of the tight ends was gone. I thought, oh, God, they're losing their guys. But what happened was, so these other guys got taken. Hampton fell to them and boom, locked them in real quick. So,
well, what's the future? Quentin Johnston, when he came out of TCU, his bad rap was he would drop passes.
Still going on, right?
And it's still happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, he's been with the team now for 2 years, I think, right?
Yep.
So maybe this is the end of the road for him.
On the depth chart right now, just based on the fact that he gave so much ground last year after a decent start, and just wasn't part of the equation at the end, I think he's probably behind this draft pick that they just took from Ole Miss, Trey Harris.
So there's Trey Harris, there's McConkey. Palmer's gone, right?
Palmer is gone.
So who else is left out there?
Off the top of my head, I'd have to go dig
because
it up.
Quentin Johnston's one of them. And so, I mean, and then at tight end, you mean who they got?
Well, they got Will Dissly, who caught a ton of passes last season, and then they signed another free agent tight end. And they took a tight end later. Gadsden, Orante Gadsden, big kid, caught a lot of balls. So he's going to get a chance to come in and play. We'll see. I was told he's a better blocker than these other guys who are just strictly pass catching tight ends. So I think these guys have chances to play.
But no offensive linemen were drafted?
No.
Okay, but they're shuffling the deck there, and they got the new guy from Philly.
Right.
So hopefully they can figure that out and plug some holes.
Yeah, they got to figure left guard. They got to figure center. That's where they are. And all the free agents are off the board. There's nobody out there to go get now. But if Zion Johnson is the real deal and can go in and play center, that's going to make him better, because I thought they were very leaky at center, because Zion Johnson did not have a good year at left guard. So that's one of the game plans. And the other game plan is maybe moving Trey Pickens from right guard to left guard. He's massive, but he didn't have a great season at right guard. So they've got a whole bunch of guys in the mix. They got to solve the center problem, and maybe Zion Johnson, who's a third-year pick and a third-year guy, number 1 pick out of Boston College. Maybe he's going to be the starting center.
Interesting.
Okay, all things NFL draft. If you got questions, you got answers, you got statements to make, that's why the Fans Forum chat box is open. When we're done telling you what we think, we want to hear what you think. And we're not done talking about the National Football League drafts, because let's talk about everything that happened around the draft that was not strictly related just to the top pick of the draft.
Yeah, I mean, the guys at the desk, Mel Kiper was involved in a lot of chaos.
So the burning question, how do you explain a quarterback going from the second QB on the draft board, likely high first-round pick, to pick 144? How is that possible? Did the NFL not like him? Do they not like what he represents? Or is this about his shortcomings as a player or maybe even as a person? It is amazing because his stories were stacking in the weeks leading into the draft about the negatives about Shedeur Sanders. And part of it was football related, and I think very realistic. Part of it had to do a lot with his interaction with people at the NFL, at the combine, at workouts, at private meetings, etc. So I network with a lot of people, and a couple of them are scouts, a couple of them are player personnel guy, a couple of them are former NFL executives and general managers. I asked them anonymously just to give me some thoughts as to why this happened to Shedeur Sanders. This is after he sat on the board until the 5th round, where the quarterback poor Cleveland Browns took him after they had already taken Oregon quarterback Dylan Gabriel. John, put up the quotes here because I'm going to read just specifically what these NFL scouts tell me. They ran a junk offense at Colorado and at Jackson State. The star wide receivers at those schools were like an Olympic track team. They gained all the yards. They made all the plays. It was a lot of freelance football. He threw the ball. Those guys caught it and made the plays down the field. If you subtract the bubble screens, the flare passes, and all that, and just did a metric breakdown of the important passes an NFL quarterback has to make, the completion rate on his deep slants, his deep crosses, his deep sidelines, and his deep outs was 39% on the deep stuff down the field. Now, this is from NFL scouts. You remember the run and shoot, Lee? That was supposed to be the next great thing. Do you know how long that lasted? It was a gimmick package. Defenses caught up to it. Quarterbacks got killed, and it was gone quickly. What Colorado and Jackson State ran was great for college football if you had speed, but you cannot do that in the NFL. Flaws. He took 96 sacks in 2 years because he doesn't move the pocket well. He was only 13-12 in 2 years at CU. He was 1-7 versus the best teams on the schedule. The video does not lie. He does not have a rocket arm. He can't put the ball into tight spots. He's late on throws. He holds it too long. He has a propensity only to scramble to the left when he's in trouble. Every scout who looks at video will put that into a game plan if they have to play him in the NFL. And this one had been monitored before. He doesn't check off many of the boxes, the elite boxes, talent-wise, you need to have if you want an NFL quarterback. So we can sit here and we can talk about the fact he threw for 4,700 yards and whatever it was touchdown-wise, and over 14,000 yards between Colorado and Jackson State. I thought it was a gimmick and gadget offense that worked in college football because Deion recruited an Olympic track team of wide receivers. His receiving core was phenomenal. That's why a bunch of those guys got drafted. Now, this doesn't say this kid can't play, but this says, as the one lead scout told me, it's a junk offense. Can't run this stuff in the National Football League. So, what do you think about what they had to say with those headlines?
Junk offense, run and shoot, and flaws. So there's mixed messages on the football side of this argument. We'll set the personality stuff for later.
Still to come.
But we were talking about Shedeur Sanders as a great athlete. This should have been like a top 10 quarterback, certainly a first rounder, even in the first year when he came over from Jackson State. And the message was, boy, he's got a great arm. He can put the passes on target, but he had no offensive line help. So that's why he was scrambling, and that's why he was erratic. Now it seems like they're using the bad offensive line sort of against him because he was in duress. He was scrambling. He wasn't the pocket passer that he's supposed to be.
Yeah, but the second year at Colorado, they recruited more offensive linemen. They got better, and he still was running for his life. He still took a ton of sacks.
Did you see there's like a video clip of Cam Ward and Shedeur working out together and smack talking the whole time? And Cam Ward was saying, yeah, you just throw those bubble screens, these easy passes. The wide receivers do all the work for you.
That's what the scouts said. So that's where we are there. Now, let me give you some other inside information here about this. This is the national media has done a lot of digging here. During the course of his meetings with NFL teams, he was on a Zoom with a head coach. In the middle of Zoom, he paused it because he wanted to take a call from one of his posse while he's on a Zoom with an NFL head coach. He gave one-word answers in some of the questions from different coaches that he met with or was on Zoom. He seemed disinterested in person when he was meeting with some of the teams, either at the combine where he did have meetings or in follow-up meetings with some of the clubs. He made people wait. He was late for meetings with coaches and general managers. You're kidding me? He refused requests to workouts. More than once he said, you got 4 years of video from Jackson State, Colorado. Just go watch the video. He acted like it should be an honor that I'm sitting here in the room talking to you. This is how he came off to some NFL people. One of the coaches pulled up a montage of videos of turnovers at Colorado and asked Shedeur to comment what he saw or why he made the decision. Shedeur never took the blame for any of the turnovers. It was always the wide receiver or it was always the offensive lineman. And the general consensus is he just disrespected the entire process of how the NFL evaluates all that. So your reaction from all this, quote, inside information from people who actually interacted him and just kind of fed up with the process and told the media this is what happened.
It's a maturity factor here. I mean, he's not getting the right kind of guidance, not just from, his father, Coach Prime, but really from his whole entourage. I mean, you've got to be in there. You have to be a good student. You've got to show a willingness and a humbleness in front of these scouts. I mean, not showing up for interviews or taking phone calls in the middle of an interview. That's dumb. One-word answers. That's dumb. I mean, he's just killing himself. And I don't understand. Like, people were obviously commenting about this leading into the draft. Why did he continue this behavior? Was it just an ego thing? I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
That's who he is. Is he a student of the game? I think he's addicted to be a student of the game. Is he an athlete? Yeah, some, but he doesn't check off all the boxes of all the things you need. Pocket presence has not been part of his repertoire. They got away with a lot of stuff when he was at Jackson State because they didn't have the athletes to be able to keep up with the track stars he had as his wide receivers. But this is a whole different set of circumstances.
Well, if the athlete has some holes, that's okay if their mental game is really good, and they'll make all the right kind of decisions. These franchises are going to invest huge money in these guys, especially the first rounders. They can't afford to pick a Ryan Leaf and have a disaster on their hands.
Well said. Okay, that takes us to the other part of the NFL draft. What happened on ESPN TV? And I lost my mind watching it. John and I conversed about this. We're talking about Mel Kiper, ESPN, Shedeur Sanders. That first round, first day broadcast was like 3 hours of outrage on TV because Shedeur did not get chosen. Mel Kiper, he lost his mind on television. I think he lost all his credibility on TV. He questioned the integrity of scouts and of player personnel officials for not picking Shedeur Sanders. He ripped into the NFL over its overall evaluation of quarterbacks, who they took, who they didn't take, who succeeded, because he'd failed to mention all the failures at the top of the draft board. He denigrated scouts, and this is what really set me off. Scouts live in the video room. That's their whole life. Is looking at players, looking at schemes, looking at formations, looking how the player reacts. Why? Because that's their livelihood and that's their job, and a lot of people depend on them to get it right if you're evaluating this quarterback, because if you screw up, it sets the franchise way back. If you screw up, coaches get fired, front office people get fired, you probably lose your job. And yet, Mel Kiper just denigrated all these guys who spent every minute of every life looking at every snap that quarterback took at Colorado, at Jackson State. So he's telling these people they're absolutely wrong. I have no problem with any of those guys on the panel on ESPN expressing an opinion. You want to say this, that's fine. You want to say that, you want to react to what they said, that's fine. You said it, move on, because there's more players and there's more trades and there's more picks and more interviews to get done to comment on. They kept going back to Shedeur. I counted 6 times in 3 hours. They interrupted coverage and went off on tangents about Sanders, and he's still not been taken in the second round. My God, he's still on Mel's best player available in the third round. And my God, they're in the 5th round. He hasn't been taken. He became a carnival barker. And it got worse as the thing went on. And I'm sorry, I've known Mel Kiper a long time, interviewed him a lot of times. He just crushed his credibility with all this freaking whining. I felt he and that panel took the oxygen out of the draft. And you know how bad it was, John? They did not interview Cam Ward, the number 1 pick in the draft, who's a great self-made story of a zero recruit who got no scholarships, went to a Division II school in Texas, wound up at Washington State where he was a Pac-12 star, went to Miami, and threw 39 touchdowns in his first year. They did not interview him. How can that freaking be possible? Where's the producers? Where's the directors in his headset to tell these guys, you said it, move on, get off the topic, get to Cam Ward? They never interviewed the number 1 pick in the draft. That was just absolute shocker to me. And it just went on and on and on. It drove me crazy, and I don't understand it. Now, I'm wondering, because after Thursday's debacle on TV, when they came back on Friday, they were more refined. And they were talking about the first round the day before, and they were talking about who was available here, da-da-da. I'm wondering if there was a come-to-Jesus meeting in that truck after that Thursday debacle in which they told these guys, you shut the bleep up about the Shedeur Sanders sales pitch and do the rest of your job, because it was unfair, I thought, to all these other kids. And I thought it tarnished the whole thing. Your reaction?
A lot of different things in there. And on one level, I wouldn't be surprised if they were coached up to talk about Shedeur, because that was obviously the dominant story going into the draft and the way the whole thing played out. But yeah, it was crazy. I mean, Mel Kiper, I mean, I get it. He's an expert on the draft and everything, but I only see him one day a year, you know? And who is he to question the scouts and telling them they don't know how to evaluate quarterbacks? And I'm thinking, who the hell are you? You're a guy that just does draft rankings, and you think you know more than these scouts? And then I thought there was another thing going on with Mel Kiper. Did you see there's a young man there that's like a young Mel Kiper? And I don't remember his name, but he's even got the hairstyle that looks like Mel Kiper. And I'm thinking Kiper maybe is feeling like he's losing relevance, and he needed to be kind of a little bit out there to try to prove that he's still the guy. But to your point, he ruined his credibility. And there have been incidents in previous drafts where he's gotten in arguments on that desk. Now, granted, what happened this weekend was probably the biggest of all of them.
Sure.
But I don't know. To me, Mel Kiper is a guy that it's like Jimmy the Greek, it's just like, move on.
You agree with me? Took the oxygen right out of the whole draft because this thing just kept going on and on and on? Or am I wrong?
No, you're right. Because you're right. They didn't interview Cam Ward. And, the minute Cam Ward was selected, he was up on the stage getting a hug from, the commissioner. They're still talking about Shedeur,
And then there was the Jacksonville Cleveland trade came right after that, but they never got back to the kid.
Yeah. So it just, the whole thing was just like, just Shedeur. And granted, that was a big story, but I think there's a lot of people that wanted to turn the story into something that it wasn't, like it was a race issue or something like that. And in this case, Kiper basically saying that he thinks he knows more than the scouts, and that's just dumb.
I think it's disgraceful because this is the career of all these people, and they take their job seriously. I've been in those war rooms. I know those stacks of videos on the wall of every player on the draft board. I know how all those player personnel people sit there and watch film, and they'll go up on the computer and say, pull me up something from the Colorado-Nebraska game. I want to see this series of snaps again. It's all right there because it's all digitalized and computerized. That's what these guys do every minute of every day. And a guy on ESPN has just castrated him. I thought it was just terrible. Okay, where are we at this hour? Shedeur Sanders is the fifth quarterback in the room now with the Cleveland Browns. They got a mixed bag, as John and I talked about. All walks of life. They got a pros pro in Joe Flacco. They got a failed high pick in Kenny Pickett, who's going to try to resuscitate his Cleveland career. They got all the troubles on and off the field and the injury factor now with Deshaun Watson. Then they got the rookie Dylan Gabriel from Oregon, who's a systems quarterback, but had great success at the three places that he played. And now you add into this equation, here comes Shedeur Sanders. He's going to a team that's got a good head coach. Kevin Stefanski, real smart guy in terms of offense, in terms of quarterbacks, good idea, man. The distractions, all things Coach Prime, Colorado, Shedeur, over. The distractions end. The videographer who travels with him all the time, while they're at practice, in meetings, shooting all those documentary stuff, while he's clubbing with the fellas and the girls, gone. What the Browns are going to do, there'll be no luxury cars, there'll be no bling, there'll be no babes. This all ends in Cleveland. Browns lock down the facility, very limited access to him. They'll close practices. It'll be all football all the time. Now, if he wants to go to the flats where all the nightclubs are in Cleveland on his off hours, he'll go to the flats, I'm sure. But in terms of the entourage that was all part of everything that was at Colorado under Neon Deion, that ends. They own him now. He is a Cleveland Brown. He does not belong to Deion Sanders anymore. Now, we'll find out where his strengths are, where the weaknesses are, what they can mold him. They got 3 preseason games. I am sure that Flacco and Pickett will play very sparingly. I think you'll see a heavy dose of Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, but his whole world has changed effective immediately. Reaction?
No bling, no babes. You were saying, return the Rolexes, return the Rolls Royces, man. Now, you can't control his off the field, out of the facility behavior. He's still going to be Shedeur. He's still Coach Prime's son. So I think what's going to happen at Cleveland is I'll bet you Kenny Pickett is the one that gets cut, because they probably picked Pickett thinking they weren't sure who was going to back up Flacco, or maybe they thought of him as a backup in the first place. And then suddenly they thought, maybe more, maybe this Dylan Gabriel kid might be good because he has had a great track record. Yeah. And then suddenly Shedeur sort of falls in their lap in the 5th round, and they figure, well, what the hell? And let's just kind of, throw them all out and see which quarterback sticks on the wall like spaghetti.
Isn't it intriguing, though, that 2 of the teams that desperately needed quarterbacks, Cleveland bypassed him 5 times when he was on the board. Pittsburgh went 4 rounds, didn't even draft him. That's amazing from 2 teams that are desperate for quarterbacks. Well, what does it say about Shedeur?
Well, yeah, but I think it says a lot about the franchises, too. I mean, Pittsburgh doesn't want any of that BS. Mm-hmm. I mean, they drafted Will Howard, because they just wanted kind of a steady Eddie guy. Cleveland is just desperate, to be relevant, to be something. So I thought Cleveland was going to take him much earlier in the draft. Cleveland seems like a natural place. And didn't Coach Prime already like kind of wooing the ownership there with Cleveland?
Well,
Trying to build,
saying a lot of things to a lot of people, but that was just fluff.
Yeah. So are we going to have, we have 5 more quarterbacks in that room. And we've already seen the list of 40 quarterbacks over the last, 20-something years?
Since 1999.
Yeah, so we're going to add 5 more to that list, and they're probably going to be talking about Arch Manning next year.
We'll see. Hey, that's our coverage of the National Football League. Voice of the Chargers, voice of the Seahawks. I live and die with the NFL. We do sports talk like nobody else does it as it relates to the National Football League. So the Fans Forum chat box is open. I want newcomers. I want first-timers. I want those of you who followed us since day one. You got an opinion on the clubs, the draft. Got an opinion on Shedeur. You got an opinion on what Mel Kiper did. Your opinion counts. The Fans Forum chat box is now open. We got a lot of other topics we're going to talk about on this Monday bonus podcast. Brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you. John's been in my house. John's seen what my family room, a.k.a. man cave, looks like. John is of the opinion I need to go back to DIXIELINE and get them to help me put up new and unique bookcases that would add some class to my man cave
Why
family
do you always
room.
keep bringing up bookcases? Yeah, they sell lumber. They sell really nice, like the mahogany lumber that you can build your own. But
So you're going to drop hints now the wife needs a kitchen.
yeah, well, there you go. Now you're in the sweet spot. Kitchen, bath, doors, windows, outdoor decking, power tools. They've got it all for the contractor and for the homeowner. And by the way, DIXIELINE Lumber is part of Builders First Source, which is the largest lumber company in the United States. So they're not just a presence here in San Diego for 100 years. They're all over America.
DIXIELINE Lumber, 9 locations to serve you. We use the phrase, build it, fix it. We guarantee you will enjoy it in 2025 at DIXIELINE Lumber. And this podcast is brought to you by Our Lads Draft Guide. We had John Cooper, their draft editor, on with us leading into the National Football League draft. If you like college football, you like the NFL, you got to have this publication in your library. They, of course, have the rankings of all the players who just got drafted. They also have the back part of the book has the depth charts of every team in the National Football League, their strengths and weaknesses. Now, you can call and get this order now, and it also guarantees you will get their preseason camp book, which is bigger than this, which breaks down the draft, each player going to each respective team, the depth charts, etc. Just go to ourlads.com. ourlads.com. You can subscribe. You get the PDF of the book. And then when they put out the preseason camp book, you'll get that in early July. ourlads.com. When we're done with this podcast, you're taking over this podcast. We don't have a dress code for you, so you can wear whatever you want, but you have to join us in Fans Forum in the chat box. John, how does it work?
Okay, so you have a comment or question for Hacksaw, comments about Shedeur Sanders in the draft. Drop your take in the live chat on X, YouTube, Facebook. Who are the names I see here already? I see John and Hector and Chris and William and Richard and William here a bunch of times. Manuel, Callan, Matthew. So jump on board. First timers, new guys, welcome in Fans Forum.
Okay, a couple of other items. I write on my website every day of the week. If you get to check it, you're really missing something. Go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Volume of information. You might just care about the NFL. That's no problem. Check the NFL page. You may only care about baseball. Well, we cover that in depth. We got the NBA playoffs. We got all things hockey. I cover golf and NASCAR and Formula One, IndyCar, etc., as well as soccer. I write about it every day. LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Check it out. I'm on social media. Join my team, Hacksaw's Twitter All-Stars. Just go to @Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. We want you to join my insiders group. You can register to get on the email list. Go to my website right there on the front page. There's a big orange box that you fill out, get on the email list. We want you to share. Tell everybody what we do, whether you like us or dislike us, agree or disagree, doesn't matter. Tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30 and subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll also get the alerts every time we put something up new on the YouTube channel, and we do that quite often during the course of the week. That's all things football. That's all things how you get involved with us. Let's go to the second half of our Monday bonus podcast. Of course, we're not done talking, John.
No, we're talking baseball, and the Padres are just in the in a hole right now.
Padres got a real problem here. Can they get out of the problem? Sure. Padres have lost 4 in a row. They've lost 8 of 11. They're batting 162 during this 4-game skid. And for the first time this season, first time in years, Padres got booed at home in the 9th inning as they got swept by lowly Tampa Bay. Padres are just battered with injuries. They're going to get most of these guys back healthy. It might start as early as tomorrow if Luis Ariz clears concussion protocol. Jackson Merrill has gone to Arizona to get more workouts. He could be back possibly by the weekend, but they're just really dinged up. They're putting half their batting order are street free agents and super utility men. But some of the stars are just, they're not getting good pitchers to look at. Tatis, Manny, and Bogaerts are combined 15 for 79. I don't know what the math is on that, but that's what it's been recently, and that's one of the reasons they're just not scoring runs. The Padres have scored 5 runs in their last 40 innings. You're not going to win very many games with that, but that's the byproduct of how many guys are out of the lineup. They do have another problem, though, and this has to do with where they are with the starting pitching. They're not getting quality starts. Not so much from Michael King, getting no quality starts from Dylan Cease. The only quality starts that they're getting are from Nick Pivetta, who's going to face Logan Webb Tuesday night when the Giants roll into town. So they've got a myriad of problems, and what complicates it is they don't have any way to go get players. There's nobody at AAA El Paso to bring up. There's nobody in the farm system at AA that's ready for Major League Baseball. And because of the budget and the money has all been spent, there's no way to make an acquisition from the outside to get something different. So they're going to have to ride this out. But it's not the end of the season. A lot of baseball to be played. But they are really dinged up. They're going to get some of the injured guys back. But they cannot afford to lose any of the big 3 stars in the everyday lineup. They can't afford to have anything happen injury-wise to the 3 established starting pitchers because the bullpen is burned out. They've had to go to the bullpen so much, it's unbelievable. So, John, give me an opinion about a team with a batting average of 162 that's lost 8 of its last 11 after a 9-1 start.
It's very hard to watch. And as a Padre fan, we understand the injuries. I mean, good on Schilt for not making the injuries an excuse. He kind of took the blame. I think that was good leadership. But it's just shocking, the way this whole thing has slid off a cliff. I mean, we were at, sky high there for the first 2 weeks of the season. But the fans are relentless in their anger towards Yuli Gurriel and Xander Bogaerts. They figure Gurriel is washed up, needs to be let go, and they just can't figure out what happened to Xander Bogaerts. Why isn't he the player that was so good in Boston?
Well, he was on a bit of a slippage in Boston, and then the Padres gave him a mega contract. It's almost, this might sound unfair to say this, it's almost like what happened with Albert Pujols. Legendary career with the Cardinals. But he was starting to go downhill statistically in St. Louis, and then Arte Moreno gave him a 10-year contract, and he never bounced back. It was just a continued downhill slope for Pujols. I see the same thing with Bogaerts, and he's not playing Gold Glove defense right now. He's made some errors in a couple of games that they wound up losing.
But it's just a mystery, and we're stuck with that contract. Some people on Twitter are saying package him with Ethan Salas to unload him. No. I don't know. I hope he comes back. He'll come around at least. Bullpen, though, they've been overworked, but they're really good. I think they're leading Major League Baseball 1.62 ERA.
How many times can you do that?
Well, yeah, you can only do that so many times, but there's still a lot to like with this team. I think Tatis, you said what, Tatis, Bogaerts, and Manny was 15 for 79.
Yeah.
My bet is that almost all of that is Tatis,
Right, it is.
And so he's still a great player, gets a little more bats around, and he'll start to see more quality pitches. But when you've got Martin Maldonado, Yuli Gurriel, Tyler Wade, I mean, who else is in the mix out there?
The whole committee in left field.
Yeah, the committee in left field. And they've even had to go deep in the pitching. I mean, they got brought in Gillespie. He got hurt. They've been bringing up all these new guys from Major League debuts. I mean, it's just chaos. But like you say, once they all come back, I think we'll be okay.
holding my breath on a rise. I mean, I did not like what I heard when he finally was cleared by doctors to start taking some limited infield and batting practice. And for him to talk extensively that he kept having severe headaches, and he was groggy all the time, and all he wanted to do was sleep, that's not good. Now, he's been cleared to do running. He's going to take full batting practice, we believe, on Tuesday at the stadium. We'll see if he gets cleared by the doctors. But, he's not done any heavy-duty running. He's not slid. He's not diving for ground balls where there's impact on his body. So there's an area here we're going to have to walk through to make sure he doesn't have any setbacks as he actually plays the game, because there are going to be some collisions, or he's going to hit the ground, or he's got to run hard. He's going to pound a little bit. So, but boy, when he started talking about the fact he had severe headaches for days and he was groggy all the time, that's a significant concussion. So these doctors know what they're doing. They'll clear him if it's green light go. He plays Tuesday, but then we have to see how his body reacts to the pounding that goes on during the course of a game.
That's what I'm worried about. As Arise is not a tough guy, right? Mm-hmm. And so he is like the wizard out there with his wand and the way he moves that bat around and the hand-eye coordination.
Maybe just make him the DH and don't let him pound in the field yet.
Well, sure, but I'm wondering if the damage to his brain is going to affect the hand-eye coordination, because he can't depend on muscle and balls out to the outfield. He's got to be that lightning quick, fast hair trigger synapses in his brain to hit the ball so consistently. And if he's like off center, he's screwed.
And here come the Giants, 19-10. How is that possible? Giants have like two guys that are hitting.
Yeah.
I mean, Adames is hitting 202. Think about that. Mike Yastrzemski is their leading hitter. Think about that. The team batting average is 229. Think about that. But they do have Logan Webb, and their frontline starters have been pretty damn competitive. They're 19-10. I don't know if they're going to play a 162-game schedule at that pace. They're 19-10. That's pretty impressive.
Well, Giants fans who I talk with are really happy, but they've been thinking, okay, we're going to focus on the Warriors right now. There's other things going on, but the way the Giants are playing, they're like grabbing San Francisco fan and saying, hey, look at us. And so, yeah, they've had a nice run here. Let's see if they can keep it up.
On we go. We go from Padre baseball, talk about Dodger baseball.
Dodgers, pitching problems grow.
The best that money can buy, but money can't buy you guarantee of health. Dodgers are already dealing with a second setback with Blake Snell. Led to believe he's had a plasma platelet injection in the shoulder. We talked extensively on the podcast last week about his bad first halves. Has anybody ever done a sit-down regimen evaluation of what he does in the offseason, why his first halves are all so bad? And now it's happened again. He's hurt. Now to compound it, Tyler Glasnow goes down. I don't know if you saw the video of him throwing a warm-up pitch and crumbling on the mound.
Yeah, I did.
Now, they haven't said that it's catastrophic, but Oral Hershiser does the broadcast, thinks it is. He says he injured his shoulder. He says he's had problems. He has tried to change his mechanics to protect his elbow, protect his forearm. He's had so many injuries in Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay. They've tried to restructure his mechanics, and he's struggled with repeating things. And he says what's going on with the shoulder is now a byproduct of his inability to repeat his mechanics. Now he's hurt. I hope he didn't tear his labrum. I hope it's not a re-injury of the elbow ligaments that he had surgery on while he was with the Pittsburgh Pirates. But this is a mess. I mean, they got $182 million tied up in Snell and $165 million in Glasnow, who had a history of injuries. A lot of people raised eyebrows when the Dodgers got Glasnow and gave him that contract extension, said, there's quite a track record here of injuries. That's why Tampa got rid of him. That's why Pittsburgh let him go. So the Dodgers, like I say, you can have all the money in the world. You can buy all these players. Doesn't buy you the guarantee that these guys are going to stay healthy. Kershaw's had two good back-to-back outings at Oklahoma City and Tulsa. He's headed for his third rehab start middle of this week in Oak City. He may be ahead of the curve to come back. I think Tony Gonsolin, who's had 4 rehab starts and has been really dominant at Oak City, He's coming. He's going to pitch probably the middle of this week. They got Yamamoto, who's having a Cy Young Award start. Sasaki's pitching pretty well. Hasn't won his first game yet. And even though he got banged around a little bit early starts, he's had 3 good starts in a row. But Dodgers back end of the batting order is still not hitting. A lot of people are bagging on Max Muncy, something vicious up in Los Angeles. But now that they got these injuries here. So does it make you wonder about the Dodgers investigate Snell and Glasnow and their history? Should they have?
Well, their history is well known. I mean, everyone knows that those 2 players get hurt a lot. Everyone knows that Snell is shaky in the first half of the season. I don't know. Fire Mark Pryor, Yeah, but I think the Tyler Glasnow situation, when they brought him over, he was just athletic on the mound, and he hadn't really thought about his mechanics that deeply. And so when the Dodgers said, we're going to tweak a few things to help prevent those injuries, I thought, hey, that makes sense. But it's true that you fix one thing here and it throws something else over here off center. And then next thing you know, you got to adjust 16 different ways, and that gets in their head and they end up making mistakes, and it's hard to repeat it. So I can see why it's so frustrating for Tyler Glasnow to go through this. But I don't know if you can really blame the Dodgers for that. It's just a weird set of circumstances. Maybe you blame the Dodgers in signing him in the first place because they knew they were inheriting a guy that was like a muscle car that had a broken carburetor.
And the other factor in the equation, it's the month of May. It's like middle of the baseball season. You don't make changes. You can't make changes mechanically to a pitcher who needs the ball every 4th day. You just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not that time to practice it, repeat it, practice it, because you're giving the ball to go out to the mound. And now he's hurt. So we'll see what happens with the MRI. I would assume by tomorrow, when the Dodgers come back to play, we're going to get a report as to how significant this shoulder setback, if it is the shoulder. Oral Hershiser thought it was real damage, because when he came off the mound after making one throw, it was like, holy cow. The video I saw was bad. Speaking of bad, let's talk about the Angels.
The Angels. Yeah, right here. Team hits the skids.
Angels, another losing streak. Mike Trout not hitting at all, aside from the home runs. He's got 9 home runs. Mike Trout's hitting 170.
Really?
They moved him to the top of the batting order. They're just not getting a lot of support. Zach Neto, the shortstop, is back, hit a home run his first week back after the shoulder surgery. Logan O'Hoppy's hit some home runs. Nobody else is really doing very much with the Angels. And the top 2 pitchers they got in the offseason, they're scuffling. Yusei Kikuchi has had 2 bad back-to-back outings, and that's the number 1 starter on the staff. And the ex-Cub Kyle Hendrick, who pitched really well during spring and pitched well in the first couple of starts, he's got an ERA of 6.63. They're gonna have to make some changes. I don't know if they're going to take Reed Detmers out of the bullpen, put him back into the rotation, and hope for the best for the number 1 pick. They've got a young pitcher who got killed in spring training, but has gone to Salt Lake City, Cade Denna. He's pitching really well in the Pacific Coast League. I would assume he might be the next one that's going to get called up, but the season's kind of slipping away from Ron Washington already.
We were praising the Angels that they made wise free agent choices.
They rented guys. But they weren't team utility guys. I mean, Yamakata, and who else? They got Jorge Soler. Right.
How are those guys playing right now? They must not be hitting.
Moncada's on the disabled list, thumb injury. Did not hit before he got hurt. Soler's hit some home runs, but batting average maybe 211.
Tim Anderson was another guy.
Yeah, he's hitting the 230s, 240s. They're playing him because they're paying him.
Right.
But nobody's making a difference.
That's a shame.
So that's where we are with the Angels. Okay, let's go to the baseball page here because they're going to just go through the headlines. There's a lot of stuff here. Cardinals, they're paying tribute. Great baseball man. I don't think ever got enough national recognition for what he did. Former general manager Walt Jocketty has passed away at the age of 74. He built the modern-day edition of the Runnin' Redbirds. He was also general manager of Cincinnati Reds, Oakland Athletics. He was responsible for hiring Tony La Russa. They won 7 National League Central titles with him as their general manager, 2 National League Championship titles, went to the World Series, won a ring there. Not only did he hire that manager, while Walt Jocketty was the general manager in charge of the draft, Yadier Molina, Albert Pujols, Mark McGwire, Jimmy Edmonds, Scott Rowland, Adam Wainwright, Chris Carpenter, David Eckstein. That's a pretty good lineup of players that Walt Jocketty brought on board. I don't think he ever really got the kind of recognition he deserved. Did a hell of a job in St. Louis for a long period of time. So he has passed away. Dodgers, out of sight, out of mind, but always in the headlines. Trevor Bauer is in more trouble in Japan. He's not pitching very well for the Yamaha Bay Stars, but he has now filed 2 lawsuits against the women that he had been involved with who had filed lawsuits against him. They had settled these things out of court, and the women violated the confidentiality clauses in the settlements. Now Bauer's going after them for defamation of character because they keep putting stuff out on social media about the incident or about money. Trevor Bauer, oh boy, he's having a tough time. Yokohama Bay Stars, not just on the mound, but obviously off the field. You don't see this very often. Let's just talk about the Boston Red Sox. Walker Buehler, Dodgers. Would have liked to see him with the Padres. 4-1. He's the ace of the Red Sox staff.
Nice. Good for him.
9 strikeouts last start. Really, really dominant with him. You like to see good things happen to guys who travel a tough road coming back and rehab. Brandon Woodruff, who's had multiple shoulder problems. 5 shutout innings in his last rehab start in the minor leagues. He's had 3 good starts in a row in the Brewers farm system. So good for him. He's going to get the chance to come back pretty quickly. I wanted to mention Arizona, and we didn't get it up there. Did you see what happened on the weekend with their third baseman DH, Eugenio Suarez?
Oh, yeah, 4 home runs.
4 home runs and 4 at-bats, and they lost. He was cranking the ball. He doesn't hit for average. He grinds as a third baseman, first baseman, but dude can pop the ball. He's moved around baseball a lot. He was in Cincinnati prior to that. He's been a bunch of different spots. He had 4 home runs, 4 solo shots for Arizona. They wound up losing. And then there's the Giants, your first place Giants. I laughed when I saw this, and I had totally forgotten about this. His name is Heliot Ramos, young outfielder, kind of a super utility guy prospect, hasn't hit for the major leagues. He hit a ground ball that became what they call a little league home run. And I've totally forgotten about this phrase. I've heard this a long time ago. He hit a ground ball in the game over the weekend and was picked up. Was thrown by the first baseman. So Ramos is rounding first. He goes to second. First baseman running down the line because of the bad ricochet. He picks it up. He throws it to third to try to get Ramos going to third. He throws it over third baseman into the other bullpen area. Ramos comes all the way around, and what should have been an infield out becomes what they call a little league home run because he circled the bases and scored. You can identify with that.
It was great. And I've seen people on X that have they've kind of charted it out so you can see the live video of it happening and the animation of the ball and the players on the diamond, and it's a lot of fun. But I want to talk about Walt Jocketty if I could, because the Cardinals as an organization get a lot of respect because of they always seem to be one of the most well-run organizations. Here locally in San Diego, I always think of the Cardinals the way I think of Torrey Pines High School, where they're never bad. They're usually really good or at worst sort of mid. Now, lately that's changed with the Cardinals, but we always praise the organization. We don't necessarily praise Walt Jocketty as much. So, but you listed all those names. Now, McGuire was drafted by the A's, but he signed. Did he come over to the Cardinals in a trade or was it a free agency?
It's a good question. I don't recall. It might have been free agency, but he was one of a cavalcade of great players that they brought through that farm system.
Well, yeah, and they bring them up the Cardinal way, with their player development and everything. That's a great organization. So, rest in peace, Walt Jocketty. The other comment, Brandon Woodruff, because remember when Corbin Burns was with the Brewers, and it was always Woodruff 1, Burns 2.
Yep.
And then suddenly Woodruff sort of disappeared and Corbin Burns became number 1. And now Burns is with the Diamondbacks, and I kind of forgot about Woodruff. So,
well, they were both about to become free agents at the same time, and Woodruff got hurt, injured his shoulder, and had surgery. And then they both became free agents. Burns went to Baltimore. Woodruff had surgery, went on the DL. Brewers have been very patient with him. sign him to a minimum contract. He's done all rehab for 2 years. Now he's had all these good outings in rehab. So he'll be back in Milwaukee, I think, within a couple of weeks. You root for these guys. Rehab is so hard, especially pitcher surgery. So
for
hard.
2 years. I mean, it's forever.
Yep. Okay, that's all things baseball. Feel free. Jump on board if you want. Join us in the Fans Forum chat box. We're shooting baskets because we got the NBA playoffs going on. Not so good news here at this hour.
Yeah, the Lakers and Clippers, and that was a wild finish to that Clipper game.
All right, let's first of all talk about the Lakers. You don't want me to say this, do you?
Oh, here we go.
I told you so.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the line I was expecting.
Just a reflection back when the NBA trading deadline was made and the Lakers made the unbelievable deal to get Luka Doncic from Dallas in the Anthony Davis mega trade. I said, phenomenal player, but please tell me who's going to play defense and who's going to play in the paint for the Lakers. And by the way, when the Lakers are having this winning streak and Luka and LeBron are going crazy, that's great. Who the hell's going to play defense for you when you start playing real people in postseason? I told you so. The Lakers centers, Jackson Hayes for the most part, have played 4, 8, and 9 minutes in the last 3 games because they're getting their butts kicked. And the Lakers are pulling them out and going with a smaller lineup. Lakers are down 3-1, coming home to play Minnesota on Tuesday night. This is unheard of. This is impossible to accept. There should be a lot of blame placed here if their season ends tomorrow night. What the hell did you expect? I told you so. Anthony Edwards goes off for 43 yesterday for Minnesota. Their forwards, of course, there's nobody in the paint, combined for 53 in that win for Minnesota.
Yeah, I believe that.
Minnesota had 49 rebounds in that game because there's nobody to go to the glass because they're undersized because they got nobody in the paint. I told you so. Yeah, I mean, you're wasting his phenomenal efforts. Luka scores 38. LeBron was ungodly the game before. He had 27 yesterday. Hachimura had a unique Sunday, had 23. Austin Reeves did really, really well for a chunk of time in the second, but they wound up losing. They lost leads of 10, 11, and 12 in that game in losing in Minnesota, and now the T-Wolves lead them 3-1 coming back. Lakers did have a number 1 draft pick, right, last year?
Oh, yeah, Connect.
Yeah. Have you seen him at all?
No, not at all.
MIA sitting next to Bronny James at the end of I mean, they need some more firepower. Gabe Vincent is the veteran who can stroke it out of the corner. I've hardly seen him at all. Connect's not playing at all. And obviously they got nothing going on the paint. So, God, if they don't get out of the first round, this is going to be awful. What a disappointment. Or Laker fans are going to say, okay, we'll just wait till next year. Time's running out. The sandglass is running out on LeBron James here. There's a small window to do this, no? So anyhow, that's about that. Clippers. Hated to see this because they were up 2-1 and they already won in Denver and they gave it back. And they wind up losing to Denver here at home. Series is 2-2. Now they got to go back to the Mile High City, meet the Joker, and hope they can duplicate another victory there. They're going to play out of their shoes to be able to win in Denver a second time. Aaron Gordon with phenomenal putback shot. And it took forever. Hell, it was almost time to have breakfast on Monday before the referees decided to look at the replay forever and ever that it was a legal play. And I didn't exact know the rule, but Aaron Gordon, with a putback of the missed shot, drops it into the cylinder with 1/10 of a second left. It's not the cylinder. Is the ball on its way down out of his fingertips. And they looked at it from every conceivable angle. And it just left his fingertips going into the cylinder with 1/10 of a second left. It was a hell of a play. And the Clippers did about everything they could humanly do to try to stop him. And I think the thing that really bothers me is Michael Porter is playing with one arm. He's got an injured shoulder, and yet he's scoring points. Russell Westbrook did not play in the last game because he's got foot inflammation, and they lost. They lost at home to kind of a crippled Denver Nuggets team, and they gave away home court advantage now. The series should be 3-1 LA, and it says 2-2 going back to Denver. Now it's a best-of-3 series, and Denver's got 2 of them at home. I told you so. Go ahead. Respond on the Lakers. Talk about the Clippers.
Nobody likes, and I told you so.
A lot of people don't like I told you so, but I told you so. Was I right or was I right?
The Lakers game. Yeah. Did you see how Anthony Edwards was kind of punking LeBron, getting in his face, banging him around, and kind of making LeBron look a little bit soft? And then even Rudy Gobert kind of gave him a forearm shiver to the neck. So that's all part of this strategy, getting in LeBron's head. The other thing I noticed in that game is, and I don't know why I've never noticed this before, but Austin Reeves looked really small on the court compared to everybody else.
Minnesota's got so many bigs. They got so many fouls. They're just banging people all over the place. I don't give a crap if they put the Lakers to the line all night long. They don't want the Lakers to get into the rhythm of running, etc. And they've taken their running game away from them. I mean, they just body bag them all the time.
But it's interesting, isn't it? The refs are letting these guys play in the postseason rather than in the regular season. So it's more entertaining to watch. Now, the Clippers thing, now it's confusing because when the ball goes through the cylinder, that should be a basket. But if your hand, like if it was a jump shot and your finger is still on the ball when the clock hits 0, then it's obviously no go.
And that's the same thing with Aaron Gordon's putback. The ball had to be out of his fingertips, even though it was in the cylinder.
But that's part of the dispute is I think a lot of people said his finger was on the ball at 0-0.
They said no. They said with 1/10 of a second, there was space.
Well, like a millimeter, maybe. I mean, who knows?
There was space.
Yeah, but it was a good play. I mean, the way that, you know, when Joker like heaved that ball, I thought it was a desperation shot. But you think of Aaron Gordon and those hops, it was probably a planned alley-oop. And if it was planned that way, good on them. That was
I don't think it was planned. I think it was desperation heave. The Clippers did everything they could to defend Joker in the corner, and he just heaved it. But Gordon had the position. He was not blocked out. He had the position to go up and hope he could tip it.
It's like a little bit like North Carolina State Jim Valvano.
Yeah.
You know, with the putback at the end. So the Clippers are cursed. I mean, I want the Clippers to be successful. The Lakers are a 3 seed, but they're kind of a fraud as a 3, in my opinion. They're just so up and down.
Okay, Lakers line is open. Clipper callers are invited. Jonas Fans Forum chat box. Feel free to jump on board. One other basketball note here. Let's talk college hoops.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little here about San Diego State and USC Trojans.
Yeah, let's talk about the Aztecs. This kind of came as a surprise. Magoon Gwath, of course, electing to back away from going to the NBA. Now we find out why. Needed knee surgery, had an arthroscopic procedure on the PCL ligament in the back of the knee. That's for support of the knee. They're not talking specifics, but that type of surgery takes 5 months. So he won't be doing heavy-duty basketball stuff till we get to fall, which might be September into October. But you can play with an injured PCL. I was a little surprised they did the arthroscopic procedure because a lot of guys play with the injury the way it is. They wear a knee brace and they never have any problems. But this is an offshoot of what happened during the end of the regular season. So he'll be laid up some, but they think good to go once we get to October. And, of course, the season starts early November. USC, this is a really scary story. Gilbert Arenas is a longtime NBA star. His son was a tremendous recruit and decided to go to USC. And he was supposed to enroll this summer, be a freshman next year, maybe a one-and-done kid. And his son was involved in a horrible Tesla Cybertruck auto accident on Friday at 5 a.m. Hit a hydrant and a tree at full speed, destroyed the front of the truck, got trapped in the Cybertruck as it caught on fire. 2 people who were out in the street at 5 a.m. ran, had trouble breaking the windows, finally found an open window, hauled him out. And he was lying face down in the water as the truck caught on fire. It was very bad, very scary. Had to be traveling at a hell of a high rate of speed at 5 o'clock in the morning in a Tesla Cybertruck, state-of-the-art, Star Wars van. Nice use of your NIL money. What the hell are you doing out at 5 a.m.? Anyhow, he was rushed to the hospital. He was put into an induced coma because of the amount of smoke he inhaled while he was trapped in this truck that he was unconscious. Those two people saved his life. He is now stable. He's still in the hospital, but he's stable. He's out off the critical list, and he was intubated. I think they were taking the intubation tubes out this morning. What a scary story. Like I say, what the hell are you doing out at 5 o'clock in the morning, partying with the fellas? A terrible story. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Nothing good happens after midnight. Isn't that how that saying goes?
Damn right. Unless you're going to work.
And you hate to blame the kid. We've all made foolish mistakes in our youth. I certainly have.
That's pretty serious.
But yeah, at 5 a.m., even I wasn't out that late. But I saw the pictures of that Tesla truck and it looked awful.
He crushed it.
Yeah. And then you imagine if it's a fire with an electric truck. I mean, that's a whole other kind of hazard.
And it couldn't get into it. They were trying to break the windows, and they finally found an open window, crawled through, hauled him out, and he was unconscious.
Unbelievable. Well, I feel sad for the kid. Hopefully he comes back. By the way, did you see USC sign Chad Baker-Mazara?
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. He's been bouncing around. The Magungwa thing is interesting too, because it gives us a little more insight to what was happening behind the scenes. Is he going to transfer? Is he going to go pro? And if he had this knee problem, it needs to get taken care of. But it seems like these guys like Manute, or I'm going to say Manute Bol, these kind of long, lanky guys that look like baby giraffes, they seem like they would be more susceptible to knee injuries and that sort of thing, wouldn't they?
Well, they're like gazelles. They run up and down the floor. They jump. I just don't know what the bone structure, the ligament structure would be for somebody that's 7'1" or 7. Manute Bol is 7'4".
But their limbs are so long, so there's so much leverage that's applied to that ligament in the knee. So I mean, it's tough on him, and he's had a history of other injuries during his redshirt year and in high school. So God, he's a good kid, and you want him to be successful. So hopefully he can overcome it.
5 months. So, but again, the PCL injury is much different, much lesser in terms of severity than if it were a ligament on the side of the knee or or meniscus across the front. This is a lesser of an injury. So.
Yeah, I think there's the ACL and the MCL.
Right. And then you got the meniscus. And the meniscus injuries can be pretty severe. So, but he got hurt. It was a very fluke way, the way he landed. He wasn't hit. He landed and his leg buckled.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Okay. All things basketball. Feel free to jump on board if you got an opinion. Fans Forum chat box is open. Final topic on the table. We're talking hockey.
Yeah, hockey hotline.
The Kings need any help they can get. That's why I found this in the closet, my Kings hoodie. Kings will let this thing get away from them. So now their series is knotted at 2-2. I don't know what they're going to do. I thought Jim Hillier made a terrible mistake in terms of allocation of players in the third period last night up in Edmonton. And then in overtime, he cut his rotation in half. He had 6 defensemen dressed. He went with only 4 defensemen in the third period, which meant those guys, it's like double shifting. Everybody plays for a minute to a minute 20 and comes off, but then they got to go back on rather than have 3 pairs rotate on defense. You only had 2. He did the exact same thing with his forwards. He played 2 lines of forwards. He didn't play the third or fourth line very much in the final period as Edmonton roared from behind. Now, when they got to overtime, he put everybody back on the ice. But by then, they had already blown a 4-2 lead. By then, Edmonton had taken the momentum at home, and that arena is crazy. And they had the momentum, and they were just pumping shot after shot on Darcy Kemper. They got into overtime. Darcy Kemper made 20 saves in overtime. They couldn't get the puck out of the zone. They could hardly attack the other end. Edmonton wound up winning this game. That's back-to-back come-from-behind victories by the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton has outscored the Kings 13-5 in the third period and the overtimes of these playoff games. So now it's down to a best-of-3 series. Kings are up. It's tied 2-2, but the Kings lost all the momentum. And you got a fatigued goaltender who just got pelted. Edmonton had 50 shots last night on goal. So I thought Jim Hillier made a terrible mistake there. So that's one item. Second item, speaking of problems, our old Canada Networker probably want to join us from Winnipeg. The Jets, who had all these wins during the regular season. All of a sudden, Connor Hellebuyck is really struggling and has gotten pulled 2 games in a row. The Jets were up on St. Louis 2-0, went in. St. Louis beat him 2 straight, knocked Hellebuyck out of the last 2 games. Series is going back to Winnipeg. The Jets, the question is, do they keep Hellebuyck in as starting goaltender? Because he looks fatigued, and he looks like he's really starting to fight the puck. And the third one has to do with the Maple Leafs. They're in this life and death struggle with lowly Ottawa. The Ottawa Senators with almost an all-rookie lineup. Now, granted, the Leafs lead that series. I just don't understand Toronto. Best payroll, all these goal scorers, and all we get is these 1-goal games. And their goaltending, to me, is a little bit suspect, too, with the ex-San Diego goal, Anthony Stolarz, who's become their starter. I just don't know how far Toronto is going to go. You look at their roster and you say, my God, how can it be they haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967? They've got the 60-goal scorer, Austin Matthews, and they got Nylander, who scored 45, and they got Mitch Marner, who's just a tremendous young star, and they got the great veteran John Tavares, and they're struggling. They've had 3 overtime games against the lowly Ottawa Senators they could have lost. Toronto's driving me out of my mind. So, you want to talk King's puck? Go ahead and fire away.
Well, I mean, there's been so much sports on TV this weekend. I mean, I was wearing out my remote control, going baseball, NBA playoffs,
It's
NHL
called split
playoffs.
Screen, pal.
Yeah, it's even split screen. You got to have split brain to keep track of it all. I was watching that Kings game, and they had a comfortable lead, and I was like, all right, the Kings taking care of business, and then I find out they lost, and I couldn't believe it. So do you think the coach was playing not to lose? Was it like a prevent defense kind of thing?
Third period, they sat on the puck. All they're doing is to get it out. Edmonton, bring it in. We'll dump it back out. But the thing was, as the third period wore on, it was like the rink was tilted. Everything was going downhill into the King zone. And poor Darcy Kemper had so much traffic in front of him. He couldn't, the defense just ran out of gas because he was only playing 4 defensemen. He wasn't rotating 6. I just thought it was a terrible coaching mistake by Jim Hillier, and it let him back into the game. And the 2 goals came at the end of long flurries where the puck was in the King's zone and they couldn't get it out. And next thing you know, the puck is in the slot, and Evan Bouchard, who's got a big slap shot from the point, he rockets 2 shots in traffic right by Kemper, who never saw him because there were so many people in front of him. So it's tough because they've led the Oilers, they've owned the Oilers for a whole bunch of these games, and yet the series is 2-2 going back to LA.
Yeah, we were talking about payback and receipts. We thought this is finally going to get over them.
Yeah.
And if the Oilers beat him this time, this would be awful.
And Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, they're on every other shift. And that work ethic of those guys and their ability to be able to produce and play as many minutes as they are, because they're like, I was critical of the Kings short shifting. The Oilers are doing the same thing. Oilers are playing 2 lines in the third period and overtime and totally dominating.
But they were playing from behind, so they were playing desperate, weren't they? I mean, so you got to stay aggressive even when you have a lead late. And by the way, with the Jets and the Leafs, those are the 2 teams you predicted for the finals.
Yeah.
And
Toronto is winning their series, but why is this such a struggle? And this Winnipeg thing is, I hate to think that Hellebuyck has hit a wall, that he might be exhausted. He played 62 games during the season, but he's given up a lot of goals, and they've had to pull him the last two games in St. Louis because he was getting bombarded.
So what's the series score for the Jets series and the Maple Leaf series?
Maple Leafs lead 3-1. Every one has been a 1-goal game. Jets, Blues, 2-2, going back to Winnipeg.
And the Blues are like what, like a 8 seed?
Yeah, they got into the play. Blues are red hot. Holy cow, they're playing out of their mind. And they got goal scorers, and they're just playing. And they got a hot goaltender, and that's got something to do with it. So
a Winnipeg fan is going to be crushed if they don't make it out of the first round.
Oh, exactly. I can't imagine what my guys at Winnipeg Sports Talk, what it's like up there. People just got to be freaked out. But they do have, it's a best of 3 series now, but 2 of the 3 are in Winnipeg.
Okay.
So see if they can gather it back. But what do? Do they pull Hellebuyck, or let him go back out there and hope they can win on home ice? A tough call. Okay, those are topics on the table. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects, they got materials. Fix it, build it. We guarantee you will enjoy it at Dixieline Lumber. By the way, go to DixieLine.com to see all the things they have to offer you. And by Our Lads Draft Guide. Pro Football Draft is complete. You can still subscribe to not only get the draft guide, which ranked all the players and has all the depth charts of the NFL teams. You can subscribe now because then you'll also get the magazine they put out just as training camps open. It's unbelievable. It'll have all the depth charts of every team as they go to training camp in July. Subscribe now. Just go to ourlads.com. John, I bet there's a few people with opinions about Shedeur Sanders, about baseball, about hoops, because I told you so, and to talk puck. Go ahead.
There is a lot of Shedeur draft, NBA playoff stuff, but I'm going to go to the top of the list, Matthew, because you give us money, you go to the top of the list. We'll go to Matthew here, and he says, hey, I went to an FC Barcelona last week. What an amazing atmosphere. What's the best atmosphere you gents have been in? Also, Lee, will you cover the World Cup?
Well, we will cover the World Cup because that's how I got addicted to soccer. We always cover the World Cup. Hey, we're covering the English Premier League. We're covering MLS, SDFC. We cover it all. What kind of question is that? Yeah, Matthew, definitely when the World Cup gets here, we will be talking about that extensively. Atmosphere, I went to an English Premier League game while I was on holiday in England. Norwich City played Chelsea. And that was in the early days of my interest in the EPL. I'd never seen anything like it. And this is from somebody that's broadcast a Super Bowl and obviously been in NFL playoff games and those stadiums and covered World Series in person. That was pretty electric. That was pretty cool. So I had a blast. And the Chelsea Blue was dominant at that time in the English Premier League, and Norwich City was fighting not to go into relegation. And they had to win a game at home, and they beat them. They beat Chelsea, just played out of their mind. Wound up getting relegated anyhow. But, English Premier League is really cool. World Cup I love watching the World Cup on TV. I don't know if I'd enjoy the World Cup. I don't know if it's electric enough, exciting enough in terms of style. It's not the NBA. It's not the explosiveness of hockey. But I do like watching the World Cup on television. And your response is?
I remember really starting to follow the World Cup in '94 when they came to America the first time. And so I've been kind of following that along. But, I've also been to an EPL game. We went and saw Man City play Leicester City.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. I mean, that stadium is full and people are singing songs and everything else. It was a great atmosphere. But I'm thinking of other atmospheres that I've been to that are wonderful. Like Viejas Arena for an Aztec game is great. The way they do the introductions and everything. I love all of that. Of course, Petco Park is electric. I went to some games when I was doing business in Japan. I went and saw the Yakult Swallows and the Seibu Lions in different stadiums. And there it's a little bit like European soccer where they're singing songs and it's a different kind of an atmosphere. It's not so much, peanuts and Cracker Jack Americana as it is in the United States. But those are all great atmospheres. Of course, when the Chargers were at their peak, that was a great time at Qualcomm. And even the Marshall Faulk era was a great time at Qualcomm.
At San Diego Jack Murphy Stadium, as it was known then. Okay, thank you for the phone, for the items, Matthew. Stay with us. We will talk more soccer.
Yeah, the phone calls. Get those lines lit. Okay, let's go to Callan. He goes, afternoon, gents. Good grief, Saw. Playoff hockey remains the absolute best. St. Louis and Edmonton both punch back. Goalies are getting chased. Caps, Habs, throwing knuckle sandwiches. I bleep and love it.
Playoffs are entirely different atmosphere. It is so intense. And the regimen of hockey every other day. I mean, it's not like you're going to have 4 days off. It's every other day. So it's the toughest trophy to get. They're all best of 7 series. There is no one game play-in. There's no best of 3 in the first. You grind. It's best of 7. And the Canadian arenas are just electric. I'd email back and forth with guys in Canada, and they just tell me what's going on in Montreal-Washington series, even though the Capitals are going to win the series because Montreal's so young and have to learn how to win at this level at this time of the year. He said what went on Bell Center is just absolutely phenomenal. Just the fans' response to the franchise. And Toronto is a little bit more set back because that's Maple Leaf crowd. Edmonton's absolute nuts. And Winnipeg, they this thing called the whiteout. Everybody wears white white jerseys, Winnipeg home games. It's really cool. That playoffs are great.
Well, the NBA playoffs are wonderful too. I mean, it's just a great time of the year. Now, I wanted to ask a question here. For one of them is, and this is kind of a weird question. We have goalies in hockey. We have goalkeepers in soccer, also known as keepers. Are there other names for goalies in hockey, or is it just goalie?
Just goalies.
They don't call them keepers?
They call them netminders.
Netminders, okay.
But that's a 1920s term.
Okay. But yeah, this is a great time of year, and St. Louis and Edmonton punching back big time.
Yeah, a little bit of ill will there, although it hasn't, I'll be honest with you, everybody was making a big thing about the Battle of Ontario. They thought the Maple Leaf Ottawa Senator series was going to be bloodshed, but it hasn't been that way. And even the Battle in the Sunshine State, Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay, and those are two really good franchises, that has not been filled with fights. So it's just been a little bit different in these playoffs. And the end-to-end action, we had stretches. I think in the Edmonton Kings game, we had stretches. There was not a whistle for 7 minutes. That was 7 minutes of rushes and line changes, etc. So the Kings got to respond. I did my job. I wore my gear. They got to win. Holy cow!
Well, you got purple on that logo. When's that from?
This is from when they changed the logo initially.
Okay, yeah. So this like from the 80s or something? Or
No. This is the more recent.
It is?
Well, yeah, when they changed the colors to black, purple, and silver.
Oh, I thought they're just black and silver.
Well, they are, but they do have purple and some other stuff.
Good. Purple's a good color. Hey, we got the purple curtains in here. So here, let's go here to William. And he goes, I didn't like that Chargers picking running back in the first round.
Well, they need to upgrade their skill level. And the wide receivers are off the board. I mean, the kid from Arizona, McMillan, was gone really early. I'm kind of surprised he went with the 10th pick. And then the Ohio State wide receiver, he went right in front of their choice. He went to Tampa Bay. So you weren't going to force it and take the third best wide receiver when you had the second best running back. Now, Will, I'll disagree with you because this kid is big time. This kid's power this time. This kid catches the ball out of the backfield. He's a complete big guy. And it's what Harbaugh wants to do. Now, the critics will come back and say, hey, dumbass, you got the same offensive linebacker that couldn't run block last year. What makes you think it's going to get any better? Well, they're changing some parts around there. And, this will be the second year that this offensive line group will be in the Harbaugh system. So maybe they're going to be proven. But Omarion Hampton, he was slated to go at the back end of the first round, and he went 22. I think he's a good player, good pickup.
Like, who else would you have picked? I mean, would there have been an alternative?
Well, if you could have gone after, there's a whole bunch of cover corners and DBs there, but they needed to upgrade the skill level around Justin Herbert.
Well, that's what you said. Is there anybody on this roster that scares you other than Justin Herbert and maybe McConkey?
Yeah.
And there was nobody. I mean, they had to get a running back or a star receiver
sometime during the draft, and they got an elite guy. I mean, this kid had 3,600 all-purpose yards, caught a ton of balls out of the backfield, and in the power-laden ACC, averaged 5.7 yards per carry. That wasn't in 15 minutes. That was over 2.5 years.
All right. So how do you think they're going to use Najee Harris and Hampton? Is like one of them going to be like a third down back, or they're going to get equal time?
I think equal snaps. And again, Najee is established, doesn't fumble the football. Hampton is a younger, more athletic back than Najee. Najee's more of a plugger and a grinder. So I think they're both going to play, maybe even Steven.
A plugger, a grinder, a sniper. I just love your vocabulary.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go here to Richard. He goes, fans forum for some. Hey, the draft is fun, but oh my God, the hype and the coverage is out of control. The endless draft insiders that flood corporate sports radio, the mindless mock drafts that mean nothing.
Well, everybody's got an opinion, so let's read the opinions and see. There's like 5 different NFL guys that I follow who do their own mock drafts. But again, that's just an opinion. You don't know what's going on in the video room and in these meetings and the general manager and the coach and the player personnel director. And you never know what's going to happen at the top of the draft. Like the team that took McMillan at number 10, the wide receiver. I said, geez, that's awful high for him. I didn't see hardly any drafts that had him going number 10, but you picked him number 10. So there's just a lot of strange stuff that happens, but that's okay. I am a little bit surprised, unless we haven't gotten to him. I thought more people had more opinions on Shedeur or on Kiper.
Well, we're kind of sort of kind of going in chronological order here,
okay.
which paralleled the topics on the table. But yeah, there is some Shedeur stuff. We're going to get to that. But just real quick on this one. Yeah, there are, like, everybody and their brothers got a mock draft, but some of these mock drafts come out so early. It's almost like, people doing bracketology, 4 months ahead of the tournament. But I'll say this, though, that those guys, our lads, is a classic example of how in any given industry, you can go down a rabbit hole and you can go deep, 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 deep with quality information, quality content for things that the average sports fan would never understand or experience. Our lads covers all of that in incredible detail with incredible intelligence, far more than, some Yahoo with a mock draft.
Yeah, they punch it up on the internet. And okay, I'll read that. This is obviously a lot more in depth. I've known these guys since, God, the 1970s. They've been in business for a long time.
What an interesting niche market to be in.
Yeah, and the thing has exploded, obviously. Okay, Richard, thank you for being with us.
Okay, let's get a Shedeur comment here, and this is from Hector. He says, Lee, it's clear that Sanders dropped due to the John Riley factor. You have that much left field support without bringing up a bunch of red flags. Here, let me get another one in here. There are a bunch of different Shedeur comments. Let's go to John. He goes, I suspect that Shedeur Sanders' slide in the draft might be due to his dad. Was Dion guiding him through the pre-draft carousel, whispering in his ear? Could coaches and GMs be afraid of having Dion exercising undue influence over their organization? Do the coaches and GMs see the noise around an athlete like Colin Kaepernick as a potential distraction to their organization? That just isn't worth the effort.
I've had a number of different people bring up the Kaepernick name to me. You need to read my one man's opinion column that I wrote today. It's on my website. It is on Shedeur Sanders, what happened to Shedeur Sanders, how Shedeur Sanders acted, what people think about Shedeur Sanders. So if you like NFL football, you love the draft, feel free. That's just one man's opinion. It's on my website. It's absolutely free. Just type up LeeHacksawHamilton.com, go to the one man's opinion icon, punch that up. It'll take you right to the column. I at the end of the day, what one of those scouts intimated to me over the weekend was that this was a junk offense. It was gimmicks and gadgets, and it really worked well at Colorado like it did at Jackson State because he had Olympic wide receiver speed, and you can't cover that in small college football. And Shedeur never got pressured. When he got to the Big 12, he got pressured and he got his ass kicked because they didn't have a good offensive line. But they say he didn't do a lot. Was all short stuff, dump and run or throw it up and hope he can catch it. And then one scout said, I guess the phrase was, if you take out the bubble screens and the flare passes out on the edge out of his completion rates, and all you did was go 10 yards downfield, and all you did was calculate slants, hooks, crossing patterns, deep stuff, posts, his completion rate's 39%. Think about that. You can't have a 39% quarterback in the National Football League. So he was a product of a really great system with great track speed wide receivers at a smaller level. He took a lot of sacks. We'll find out. Now he's going to the pros. Whatever happened at Colorado doesn't matter to the Cleveland Browns. What happens right now, this is our structure. This is what we run. And what we want you to learn from, how to operate the offense, stay in the system, etc. We'll see how he acclimates himself. Can he be a fifth-round pick, be a star? Hell yes, Tom Brady was a star. Look where Brock Purdy came from. So anything is possible, but now he's in a different structure and maybe better people around him, but of course there'll be a lot more demands on him too.
Imagine when it comes down to negotiating his contract. That's going to be a whole other bit of drama as well.
No, because fifth-round picks are slotted. This is what you get, pal.
Oh, so it is slotted. Okay.
Oh, yeah. The whole thing is. See, that's why people, and I said this on KUSI on Saturday morning because they asked me on TV, why would you not take him in a second or third round? Because that's fixed position money. That's guaranteed money. That's 4 years with a 50-year option guaranteed money. And if you don't think he can play, or you don't know yet, you don't want to tie up all this cap space in somebody that you're going to eat a contract on in the second year that can't play. So that's why he slid and slid and slid. So it's where he came from, what they ran, and then you add on the distractions and the bling and the babes and the Lamborghinis and all that other stuff.
The Rolexes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the entourage, and some people don't want to deal with it. But the money issue and the formations and what he ran, that's the reason he was not drafted high. There's huge questions there. We're not guaranteeing 4 and 5 year deals to somebody we don't think can play, because that kills you with a cap. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, the whole slot thing does make sense. But let's get Jason in. Everyone's got an opinion on this Shedeur thing. He goes, I was a fan of his play, but Shedeur turned too many teams off with his attitude, and that is why he did not get picked early. People trying to claim racism is pathetic, and F that kid who pranked him.
Well, that's the son of the defensive coordinator at the Atlanta Falcons. Just really stupid. The kid looks at his dad's laptop and will take a couple phone numbers. I think he made calls to 3 different players just to pull a joke on him. But the kid, I will say this, Jeff Ulbricht's son already did FaceTime and apologized to Shedeur right after the story got out, and the league figured out who it was that did it, because these are all burner phones with specific phone numbers, and they pretty much figured out where the call came from, and the kid apologized within hours. So good for him. It was pretty damn stupid, though.
Yeah, it was stupid. You think about these kids, this is the biggest moment of their life at that point, and you get pranked. But it's interesting here. I mean, people are claiming racism, and it seems like the story on Shedeur Sanders shifted. Like in the beginning, it was great athlete, can make the pass. Maybe he doesn't have a big arm, but still a good athlete. But we're questioning the character. We're questioning the Dion bling and all that. But then as we got into the draft, it became more that the football side of it was the real problem. And I think everyone just accepted all of the nonsense, the traveling social media army that follows them around. It was just sort of accepted as part of the package deal. But
it was in Colorado. It's not going to damn guarantee it's not happening in Cleveland and Berea, Ohio at their training facility. You're not going to be able to get inside the locked gates to park your car as part of the entourage. No, this will be a very structured set of circumstances. Now, as you say, you must be speaking from experience in nightlife and all that, going to the flats where all the bars and the babes are in Cleveland. They can't control what the hell
you're a Cleveland guy. You know where all the hot spots are.
Been there, done that. But at the end of the day, he'll be in the damn facility 12 hours a day. He may be too tired to want to go out and party very often. So it'll settle down, it'll calm down. So the burning questions with Shedeur Sanders: how complete a quarterback is he? How much of a student of the game is he going to become? Because it's just not show up and play anymore. He's not at Jackson State playing Alcorn A&M. You're playing real people with great athletes and great coordinators. And then, is his methodology as a person going to change, and which is not the life of the party every minute of every day as he was at Colorado. So questions to be answered going forward with the Browns. It's going to be a very interesting set of OTAs. There'll be a lot of attention there, as there are in all the other camps, of what all these other quarterbacks are going to be like.
Yeah, the Browns and quarterbacks, man. What a mess. Okay, let's go here to Dave EK. And he goes, ESPN has been intolerable ever since Disney bought the company. They try to emphasize their personalities and certain storylines. Remember Pac-Man and Johnny Manziel reported on every day? Ugh.
Yeah, it just went on and on and on. As a journalist, you have a responsibility. This is the story. And if they give you the freedom, this is my opinion on the story. But you just don't go back and go back and go back. And, I wrote in my column today, Mel Kiper and those guys took the oxygen out of the draft proceedings, which is usually a lot of fun and a lot of storylines and a lot of intrigue and a lot of excitement. They took the damn oxygen out of the tent because they kept going back for these expanded opinion segments, and they'd argue back and forth about Shedeur and who screwed Shedeur and how incompetent that organization is. Just it drove me out of my mind. And I thought it was really unfair to Cam Ward, because that's quite a story of who he was, where he came from, what he became.
Yeah, they do have a history of the personalities. Like right now, it's Stephen A. Smith everywhere. But it's interesting to think about the evolution of ESPN. Like in the very, very beginning, they covered the NFL draft, right? That was one of the first things. But they were also doing like equestrian events and all kinds of weird stuff.
I remember the first drafts. They used to be on Tuesday. And they'd have 2 guys at a desk, just reading off names and then reading off a scouting report. There weren't a lot of graphics. There weren't a lot of videos.
But they had those helmet football phones. Remember those?
Yeah.
Those were good.
I mean, the technology is great and what we see and all the videos and all that. And now it's become a big event. And you got a 5-man panel and everybody has an opinion. They argue back. And I understand that. But I remember the first days. It used to be on a Tuesday. It was a one-day event. It was just amazing.
And they had like 12 rounds back then, too.
Yeah.
What do you think of Louis Riddick up on the panel?
He's good, but man, he's gotten really loud, really boisterous. I mean, he was screeching and yelling on this broadcast this past week, to the point that he was inflamed with Kiper, and it went way too far. I value the opinion of the players because they experience the game and they have unique and different insights of the game. But I just don't need you yelling and screaming about this one thing forever and ever and wrecking the rest of the draft. That to me is way off the charts.
You know, I like to, when I'm watching these things, I'll go on a little tangent and go on Wikipedia and look up people's bios.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking up Riddick because I was thinking, I remember that name as a player, but it was interesting to learn about his experience as a scout. And I guess he's been interviewed for GM jobs. So this dude's legit.
Yep.
So his opinions mean a lot, but he has a different sort of a energy around him than Kiper was like coming unglued. Like Kiper was like a Muppet.
I've never seen Kiper like that. I mean, he was so far over the top, and it just turned me off because I've known him a long time. He interviewed him a lot, and he was one of the first to ever actually do it. He and another guy out of Brooklyn by the name of Joel Bushbaum, and then it was a guy out of Chicago, Hub Arkish. They put together the legitimate first 3 sets of draft guides for years and years. And then Joel just passed on maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but he was unique. He looked as if he was a guy that sat in his mom's garage on a manual typewriter and wrote all this. That's who he was.
That's awesome.
You know, I had a great time with Joel. But Joel, you look at Joel and he had this Brooklyn accent, and sometimes it was hard to understand what he was saying, but he knew football and he had opinions. But you look at him and said, I always wanted to say to him, do you have to return that suit and tie to Sears by 6:00 tonight? But he was cool. And then I got to know Mel and interviewed Mel a ton of times in the early days when he was available, accessible. And he was good, but he was always a chatterbox to go 1,000 miles an hour because he has so many names in his head and all that. And he did a lot of research and homework. But he's just, over the last couple of years, he's just gotten so strong and bullyish in his opinions. And then what he did in the whole Shedeur Sanders thing just bothered me and offended me. And that's why I emailed a bunch of my player personnel scout friends in the league and said, give me your reaction. And that they all kind of spilled their guts and said, man, this is a junk system. Yeah, he's trying to disparage everything we spend our whole lifetime on doing. So interesting.
What do you think of the other sports leagues and their drafts? Because they're becoming bigger events too.
Oh, they become big stage events. Baseball struggled to figure out how to do this draft, and of course, it's not a global draft. It's just strictly Caribbean players and U.S. college kids and high school kids. But where do you put their draft? Do you put it during the College World Series where it used to be? That is kind of ill-fitting there. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a distraction. NBA draft has become more about French pastry. That's why you like the NBA draft. It's okay. NHL draft is just cut from a different cloth. That's in July, and they do it right around July 1st, just before free agency starts, and it's a mega event. In fact, it's coming to Los Angeles. The Kings are going to host it, I think, this coming July.
Nice.
So it's kind of cool.
Hey, maybe a remote broadcast for the podcast.
Anything's possible. We'll see. Kings, don't let me down, please. Okay, let's move on here. Fans Forum chat box is open for business.
Okay, let's get here. Go to Surf City Bill, and he goes, hey, on the bright side, Angel tickets are getting cheap.
A lot of empty seats there. I don't know if that doesn't send a message to Artie Moreno. It's just they tried hard. I'm not giving up on them, but it's obvious they don't have enough players. I mean, this losing skid they're on right now, and every one of the guys that they, quote, rented, bringing in the front door, nobody's playing very well. And poor Mike Trout, all these injuries, hitting 170, and now they've moved him to a leadoff spot, even though he's hit all these home runs. So that I think it's a long summer coming in Orange County for those poor fans. But they do have players in the farm system. They're just Probably have to rush a few more into the front.
It's just insane how much money and talent has flowed through that organization. And they have really just that one World Series to show for it.
Yeah. They spent a ton on free agents and they wasted a bunch. I mean, as great a person as Albert Pujols is, and I think he's going to be a major league manager, to give him a 10-year contract at that point, I think it was $245 million total, and he was on a downhill slide then. That's $245 million they could have spent on other players, and they didn't draft well. About 3 years ago, they spent all 21 of their draft picks on pitchers. Not one of them has gotten to the major leagues and had success.
Yeah, it's a long history. I mean, Josh Hamilton, they even signed, like, Reggie Jackson was a free agent.
Well, that's
there.
way back,
but still,
1,000 years ago.
But that was like the organization has spent money on free agents at various times,
not wisely.
But not wisely. It just never seems to work.
Yeah, they got a track record of just being cursed right now. Really have. Okay, move on.
Okay, this is a two-parter from Bill's Boat. And he goes, hey, the refs saved Denver in game 1, and the Clippers should have won the last game too. And Lee, the hand was on the ball at 0 seconds.
Well, the NBA put out a statement late yesterday. I saw a picture that had been, what do you call it, made bigger?
Enlarged,
I'm sorry. And there was space between his finger and the ball. Now, the ball was halfway into the cylinder. I didn't know the complete rule. Please make a note of this. It's the first time in my life I said I did not know. I thought if the ball was in the cylinder, it's going to be a basket. Well, it's not. The ball has to be released. If he released the shot from the corner, if he released it 1/10 of a second, that's legitimate play. If he's above the cylinder and it's out of his fingers going into the cylinder, that's a legitimate play. So they released a picture, an enlarged picture, as grainy as it was. You could see space between here, his finger, and where the ball was. Make sense?
Well, it's cool that they can break it down like that.
Yeah.
But it seemed to me that if I remember right, that the ball was not just through the cylinder, but it was the entire ball was below the rim.
Yes.
And his fingers were on the ball going down like into the net area. But to me, it looked like the fingers were still on the ball at 0. Mm-hmm. But then I was wondering, well, maybe the finger on the ball thing didn't apply because the ball had already gone through the rim.
It's got nothing to do with the cylinder. It's the finger and where the ball was as the clock got to 0-0.
What a tough way to lose a game on a play like that. It was just, it was brutal.
I mean, this thing should be over going back to Denver now. Instead, it's the best of 3, and now the Nuggets got 2 home games coming up.
Yeah, that's going to be brutal.
Have to ask Kawhi to go 39-39 again.
Kawhi doesn't like altitude. I mean, he had a tough time when he was with the Aztecs at altitude. Okay, let's go here to Showtime. He goes, Hacksaw, do the Broncos have the best defense in football? Denver's going to be very difficult to pass on Barron and Surtain in some duo.
That was interesting. They said that as Jahdae Barron from Texas, the corner, slipped down the board, they couldn't believe it. And they said it was too unique an opportunity to go choose somebody else because there'd been talk running back. They've been talk they were going to take Omari Hampton that the Chargers wound up with. But when Barron fell, and I've looked at some video on Barron, and he's a beast. He's a big boy, and he can play multiple roles, multiple positions. So you get him to line up with Patrick Surtain, and they got good linebacking, and they got a bunch of warriors defensively up front, led by that defensive tackle Allen. That's a pretty good football team. So it was a little bit out of the ordinary. They didn't go get offense, but they did draft a running back later on in the draft. So, but Sean Payton said at the press conference, we couldn't believe this guy was still on the board as he was coming towards us. It changed our whole thinking because he's a really good player.
Is Payton more of an offensive mind or defensive mind?
Oh, he's crazy offense.
He's an offensive guy.
Oh, I've known him forever. He used to be out here at San Diego State way back as a young assistant.
Really?
Yeah. And he went a whole bunch of places. He was a quarterback at Eastern Illinois. He's part of that whole Eastern Illinois alumni with Mike Shanahan and Garoppolo and
Romo. Wasn't he there too?
Yeah. Yeah. They're all Eastern Illinois guys who became something. He was at Miami of Ohio as an assistant. He's sharp cookie. He's a feisty, pushy guy, but success. Look what we did with Drew Brees in New Orleans all those years. So,
I think it's cool the way that franchise seemed to be in the worst possible position after that Russell Wilson deal.
Yep.
To suddenly now Bo Nix is the savior, and now they got this great defense. So the AFC West, man, it's going to be really competitive.
Oh, it's got to be the best division in football. How about, I said this on TV on Saturday on KUSI. How about the coaches? You got Andy Reid and all the trophies. You got Harbaugh and his resume. You obviously got Sean Payton, Super Bowl ring and success with quarterbacks. And here comes Pete Carroll. I mean, division is damn good.
Yeah, it is.
Now, I don't know if all the rosters are damn good, but the division is unbelievable in terms of leadership.
And the Raiders are making strides, right?
Well, they did. I thought
you
so.
You gave them an A in the draft.
Yeah. I think they have themselves multiple times. Okay, move on.
Let's go here to Chris. He goes, outstanding strategy by the Kings last night. Grab a 2-goal lead, then clutch the nether regions and play zero offense after the second period. Definition of playing not to lose. Entire third period and OT looked as though the Kings were 2 men down.
Yeah, it really did. It looked like a lifetime power play. It looked like the damn rink was tilted and everything was going downhill. I mean, Darcy Kemper had so much traffic in front of him, and he was making blind saves. I don't know how he found the puck, saw the puck, and then obviously they scored. Evan Bouchard's a really good defenseman with those guys. He's got just a gun of a shot, and he just whistled 2 slap shots through traffic. And I swear, I don't think Kemper saw either one. And the Kings were just get the puck out. They weren't attacking. They weren't keeping the puck in the other zone. Now, they changed it once they got to overtime, but that time the damage was done. The momentum was all Edmonton, and it's really too bad because they had these guys on the ropes. And so, 3 of the games now that they played against Edmonton has just roared back. It's like all of a sudden as a light switch goes on and you can't stop what Edmonton's doing into the zone. And Edmonton is still a 2-man hockey team. It's Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, but God, they make so many other things happen. Edmonton's doing this with their backup goaltender. I don't know if we're ever going to see Stuart Skinner again because he's been so leaky. And now they got Cal Picard, backup journeyman, minor league guy. He's tending goals. So, but the Kings get them home. Let's go back and they get game 3. So it's now a best-of-3 series. They win this third one. Then they go back to Edmonton, and they've already won there. So, but they let this thing off the hook. They should have won this thing last night.
There's a lot of playoff series that are like that, where you thought the dominant team was ready to put them away, and they let them off the hook. And this whole Oiler-King rivalry going back 3 years, this could be the 4th year in the row that the Kings get knocked off by them.
It's not over. So it's fascinating. I mean, we got the Kings Oil series to talk about, and we got Winnipeg St. Louis, and they got the old Canada people must be going absolutely crazy right now with what's happened up there.
Okay, let's keep going here. Go to William. He goes, the Cowboys missed by not taking a wide receiver to help CD Lamb.
There was a lot of conversation about that, and a lot of people are of the opinion that they should address that. But a bunch of those receivers were kind of off the board at that time. And if you look at Dallas's draft list, I just got it here in front of me. That guard is really good, Ty Booker, and of course they lost Zach Martin, who is retiring. And then they got a pass rusher. And of course they lost one of their veteran pass rushers who went, I think, to the Seahawks as a free agent. So they get the Boston College pass rusher in the second round. They got this cover corner from East Carolina who's really good. I think his name's Ravel. Had a knee injury, but he's a really good football player. They got him in the third round. And then they got a running back, Jaden Blue, who's more of a pass catcher, not a heavy-duty power back. They got him in the 4th pick. He came out of the University of Texas. So they've still got to address wide receiver, but, maybe make a trade. There's been a rumor out there that they're doing something with a wide receiver and that there's some type of trade coming with Dallas. And I don't know whether it's with Ayuk in San Francisco, which might be in total rebuild mode. The rumor is Dallas is going to execute some type of transaction to get another wide receiver to go with CD Lamb. So, William is correct in terms of that need. But historically, even if people don't like Jerry Jones, let's be honest, they have really drafted well. They don't screw the draft up ever. So let's cut them some slack here because I think they did pretty well with this collection that they brought in. And they had so many injuries and their defense was such a mess last year. So they've addressed some things there.
Yeah, it's cool talking about some other teams here. William also was commenting a bit about the Texans. He says, hey, I was impressed with the Texans draft after trading out of the first round and the talent they got. Most people rated their draft an A.
Pretty good. And they've done, their management team that came from the New England Patriots has done a really good job stockpiling. They got rid of some offensive linemen. That was a problem. The Higgins kid from Iowa State, big, rangy kid, can run. He's going to play a lot. I don't know very much about the offensive lineman they got from the University of Minnesota, Ursary, but the scouting reports praise him a great deal. And they really needed offensive linemen. They've got to put some better people around C.J. Stroud. But that's a very good football team, and what a great defense D'Amico Ryans and that staff has put together there. So they've made a lot of progress. Pretty good team last year in the playoffs. Now they grow from that. Next year, even better.
Plus, they fixed the roof at NRG Stadium. Okay, let's go here to Lenny, and he goes, hey, talk about my Vegas Golden Knights once in a while. Chargers, I'm surprised they did solid. They just picked up another running back from South Carolina. Next, Kansas City still owns the division.
Casey, yes, Casey's made changes. Casey's got to fix the offensive line. That's why it'll be very interesting to see how Josh Simmons turns out. He's still got rehab to do. He's the left tackle that started at San Diego State, wound up at Ohio State. But Kansas City, historically, because of Brett Veach and his people, have drafted very, very well. So let's just keep an eye on Kansas City. Obviously, the Chargers got themselves, I think, a really state-of-the-art quality running back. Denver went defense. Raiders got the Boise State superstar. Raiders still got work to do. I'm not convinced they have enough in the offensive line. And I thought they were going to make a deal to bring back one of their wide receivers, Hunter Renfrow, who had a really good 3 or 4 year run with the Raiders, was in Vegas last week. We meet with him. Didn't sign. He just signed this morning with the Carolina Panthers. I thought they're going to bring him back. So I still think there's some things that have to be fixed with Raider football. It is interesting because I wrote about this in my column about the Shedeur Sanders thing. With all the knowledge and all the influence of Tom Brady being there in those player personnel meetings, they didn't go after Shedeur. What does that say about Shedeur and the insights that I got from all these scouts that wrote me back? Brady didn't want this guy.
Well, it confirms, what they're saying. Usually the Raiders go for the shiny object, and they didn't this time. So, by the way, what about the Golden Knights? What are your thoughts on those guys?
I just had great reservations about Aiden Hill, whether he could hold up in goal. But they got goal scorers. They got depth. That's a pretty good hockey team. And I think the way the playoffs are structured, I want to say Vegas plays whoever survives the Kings-Edmonton series. So it's Western Conference playoffs, NHL. No place for the timid. It's pretty good.
Yeah, Callan was saying a lot of knuckle sandwiches out there. Hey, you want to take a few social media?
Do it.
Let's do it. All right, let's go down here, the list. And okay, let's go here to Dodgers. Dodger fan. This is from John Durr talking about Blake Snell and his injuries. He says, Dodgers are not concerned with the first half of the season. They want a guy who's lights out in the second half because the playoffs are in the second half.
That is true. I concur. But if you're paying that kind of money, do you not want somebody that's a full season contributor? And, if I'm sitting here with the Dodgers now you got a problem with Snell having a plasma platelet injection, which means months. He sits. You got the Snell shoulder, and now you got the Glasnow shoulder, and his history of physically breaking down. You got your two highest paid pitchers have got real significant issues here. So we'll see what the MRI report is. We'll probably get a better indication tomorrow when the Dodgers come back and move back in. I think they play Miami. Thank goodness they're playing Pittsburgh and Miami right now. But Dodgers pitching is really nicked up. Now, they got guys coming. Gonsolin's going to be the first. Looks like maybe Kershaw's ahead of the curve. Kershaw will be back in whatever the role they design. And then sometime in May, late May, maybe Ohtani. So there's help on the way.
Do you ever get the sense, though, like in the first half of the season, a lot of teams, of course they're playing to win. But, they figure if they're 500 or above by the All-Star break, they're fine, because they can still get hot in August. That's what the Padres did last year. So maybe Dodger fans are thinking the same thing. And hey, no big deal. We're in third place right now. We're probably a game or two out of first. We got the troops are coming. The cavalry's coming.
I think it's in LA. It's different because the cavalry is coming. All you need to do is look at the roster of guys that are in recovery, that are pitching in rehab right now, or guys that are in AAA that can be called back up. The Dodgers have much more depth. I guarantee if I give you a piece of paper with the Padres depth chart, you say, my God, there's nobody at AAA in El Paso that could pitch at the major league level. Can't say that about everybody at Oklahoma City because a whole bunch of those guys have already pitched there.
Yeah, and I think the Dodgers are a unicorn that way. I mean, how many teams can really say they've got a lot of depth at AAA and AA? Not many.
That's where we are. Okay, move on.
Okay, let's talk here about the Rams. And this is from Egon. He goes, man, I have 100% confidence in McVay and Snead to get this right.
Well, they've had 3 good drafts in a row. Last 2 years, they got 5 starters on defense just out of the draft alone. Now, there obviously is going to be a question next year, and I think that was the genesis of the trade to get the additional number 1 pick. They're going to have to get a quarterback because Matthew Stafford will then be 38. And although he's indicated in drop hints he wants to play this year and next year, there's got to be somebody in line. I really thought if they could trade into the second round that they would have taken Milroe from Alabama because they did work him out and liked him. He's a bit of a project, and there's a lot of unpolished areas to Jalen Milroe's game coming from the Crimson Tide, but they didn't do that. They went other places. But no, track record, their resume. I mean, what Snead has done, obviously what McVay has done as a teacher, you got to believe that they're going to be pretty good. And as long as they keep Matthew Stafford standing upright, and as long as they stay away from critical injuries, I think that's a really, really good team. And, just looking here at the Rams list, and again, they didn't draft till the second round, but I'll tell you, that tight end, Terrence Ferguson, that's a player. He had 88 receptions at Oregon. That's a really good football player. And they got this pass rusher from Michigan, Josiah Stewart. And again, that's another speed guy to go what they got in the defensive front last season. So they do a really, really good job in terms of player personnel. That Snead does not get as much respect as probably he should. And I think McVay's a hell of a coach.
Yeah, it's like 3D chess those guys are doing, or 4D chess or whatever. So they did not get a quarterback, right?
No.
So next year's class, I mean, we know about Arch Manning. What are some of the other big name quarterbacks that are going to be coming out?
Oh, my brain is so fried. I couldn't tell you. I off the top of my head, I can't tell you. Penn State quarterback is coming back. He came back this year, stayed in school. Drew Allar. He'll be one of the ones that'll probably be there. But off the top of my head, I can't think of it.
What about the quarterback that was at Tennessee and now is at UCLA?
Yeah, but he's a redshirt freshman, and that he didn't set the world on fire at Tennessee. He was surrounded by great people, threw 19 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, but he's not ready to be an NFL draft pick at this point. There's a whole maturity thing there with him too.
Okay. All right, let's keep moving here. And let's talk about the Padres. And this is from Word. And he goes, horrible take at the end. Talk about Luis Ariz. Luis Ariz injury was because the fielder ran through the bag. He was all the way on the other side of the bag and hit him with the shoulder and a forearm. A second base wouldn't have helped. What was needed was a more competent fielder. That was one of the dirtiest plays you'll see in a long time.
I don't know that it was dirty. I thought it was bang, bang. I thought they both got there simultaneously. And Ariz hit Dubon's shoulder. I don't think Dubon did this, but there was contact. Dubon was coming forward.
Well, he did this. I mean, there was a forearm shiver in there.
No, he didn't. I don't think so. I think there was, it was a violent collision,
Yes.
But that was because Dubon's body was getting to the bag with the ball, and his body, momentum was going this way. Ariz was coming full power this way. It was bad collision. I don't think it was a cheap shot by any stretch of the imagination. It was a bang, bang, really quick, dangerous, scary play.
It was bang, bang. And I think, Word makes a fair point that having that second base on first base in foul territory, that might not have helped. I mean, because it was a collision.
Yep.
But yeah.
And Dubon's momentum was carrying him across the bag. And even if there had been that second bag on the outer edge, his momentum was going to carry him that way because that's where his body was going full bore as he had caught the ball on the run.
Yeah, I just hope Ariz comes back I mean, he was actually starting to show a little bit of power this season.
He hits, yeah, and he was hitting again, but that was a jolt, and when he said Sunday in the clubhouse, because he started doing some batting practice, and we think he's going to do a full batting practice on Tuesday, but he's got to run. He's got to pound yet before, and then see how his body reacts. So I don't know if doctors are ready to clear him yet, but when he said, I've had constant headaches and I could not stay awake. I said I was groggy and I slept all the time. That's significant concussion. So even though he might be out of the concussion protocol, he's still got to do baseball-related physical exertion activities and see how his body responds. And then you mentioned hand-eye coordination. That comes into the equation too.
Yeah, and then imagine, when you have a headache and you're running, it makes the headache just horrible. So, yeah, I mean, it's concussion. They're going to have to go slow.
But I'm sorry, that was not a cheap shot. That was a violent collision. That stuff happens.
Okay, let's keep moving here, and we'll go talk Chargers. Great effing pick of talking about Hampton.
Yep. Totally agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, there were 2 running backs in the first round, and he was projected to be in that slot sometime from 20 back. I mean, the rumor out there was Denver was going to take him, that he was the Denver choice until Barron, the star cornerback, started to slip from Texas. And then, bingo, Broncos said, we're taking the cornerback to put next to Surtain, and Hampton falls to the Chargers with ideal choice. They need playmakers. So there was, at that point, the top 2 receivers that they could have gone after were already off the board. So you weren't going to take the third-rated receiver who was much farther down. So you go with the second-best running back, which was good. I thought the Bolts had a good draft. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know much about this Hampton kid. I mean, the reports sound good. I think when we see him on the field, we're going to know for sure. Mm-hmm. But how big is he?
6'1", 221.
That's tall for a running back.
Yep. He's physical, and does not have the speed of Genty. Austin Genty has an extra gear. When Genty gets into that second level and his ability to cut and boom, explode. He doesn't have that, but he is good and he's shifty. And he'll run over people. He's thick.
Is he big like Derrick Henry?
Not as big. Derrick Henry's 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah, that guy's giant.
250. Now this guy's 221. But like I said, John, 3,600 yards, all-purpose yards in 2+ years at North Carolina, 5.7 yards per carry. Mark Mann. Now he played with Drake May 1 year. So I think he's a really good football player. Everybody else I know thinks he's a good football player. So good choice.
Good. Right on. Okay, let's keep going here. Kings Oilers. This is from Carlos. He goes, Kings, Kings, Kings. LA is on fire. If they get Edmonton, they can win it all. Thoughts? Next series would be against Vegas or Minnesota.
Burning question, though. You let them back in. That's the big thing. This sucker should be 3-1 coming home, and it's not. Now it's 2-2, and it's an enormous challenge because McDavid and Draisaitl just scare the crap out of you. When they're on the ice, they are so fast, and they just change the whole concept of what you're trying to do defensively. And the Kings, when the Kings won that first game, they clogged up center ice. They never let them get speed into the zone. And then what happened in the third period last night was all of a sudden there were all these creases because the Kings were not able to stay with them. And all of a sudden, those guys were getting shots in the slot, and the guys were getting passes off on the wings, and they were getting shots on the goaltender, and the whole thing evaporated just so quickly. I mean, they had 50 shots on goal in that game last night, the Oilers did. So series is not over. We'll see if the Kings can get it back, get control back, and they're just going to have to man up. They're going to have to play the body, and they're going to have to slow them down at center ice again. And they've proven they can do it. They took them out of the games in different segments for chunks at time, but those guys are so damn dangerous. All of a sudden you look up, it's like I told John, it's like the rink is tilted and everything's going downhill into the King zone, and you just can't get control of that back. And that's happened 3 times in this series. That's why there's 13-5 goals scored in third period and overtime. Edmonton's got the edge. That's what happens.
It's an interesting rivalry to me because right now the Kings are the favorite in this series, right? I mean, they're seeded, they're the favorite. But in the previous 3 years, weren't the Oilers the favorite?
Sure. Oilers are great. And the Kings had not gotten there, and their Kings were with a roster that was starting to come together. But got to learn how to win at this level that this team has won. And I don't know what you're doing tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, but take a break from Padre baseball. Oh, no,
Mhm.
sorry, the Giants are playing, so you'd probably be unbearable.
Yeah.
But watch the Kings and the Oilers tomorrow night because that'd be big boy hockey.
Big boy.
All right, listen, we hope you have enjoyed everything we've tried to bring your way because we do sports talk the way it should be done here. We're here Mondays at 1:30, Thursdays at 1:30. We cover a ton of topics on the table. We love having you interact with us also on the Fans Forum segment at the end of every one of our podcasts. Tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays. Subscribe so you'll get on the alert list. Join my insiders group on my website so you can get the emails. We email twice a day to all of the people on the insiders group, and we thank you. Share, join us on social media too. John, we got through it, exhausted. Take a deep breath. We'll be back here Thursday to talk about it. We got a lot of games to watch too.
Yeah, man, it's just this topics on the table, jam-packed. You only went 2 hours and 20 minutes today.
Just amazing. And go to my website and read my column on Shedeur Sanders and the NFL scouts. You can agree or disagree, but that's great. Check it out. Always great to have you with us. Tell a friend. Thanks for being with us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.